Chapter 1531. She had never seen this enchantment before. It should be something that Shinjuli had researched and developed to protect the little fox. She narrowed her eyes and curled her lips. Without saying a word, she began to break the enchantment. Perhaps it was because she was going all out, but the enchantment was very easy for her to break. It was so easy that even she was stunned. She looked at her hands. It seemed like her skills had improved by quite a bit. It was even better if it improved. Then it would be easier for her to take revenge. She didn't think too much and immediately entered. After she entered, she paused for a moment when she saw the scenery inside. Jubilant. That was the only thing she could think of when she saw the layout of the room. The pavilions here were still the same. The only difference was that they had all changed into bright red new clothes. The most exquisite silk woven by sharkmen fluttered in the wind. The red coral from the deep sea was arranged in a double jubilant word in the large square. Each pavilion's horizontal board was inlaid with the finest red pearls. Each of these red pearls was the size of a pigeon's egg, and they were all priceless treasures. Now they were inlaid here and there into various shapes of twin lotuses on one stalk, and they shone faintly in the night. Bright red. There were bright red colors everywhere. No matter where one looked, there was a bright red color that blinded one's eyes. Such luxurious and festive decorations actually appeared on the cold and solemn Tianyin Peak. If Ning Xuema didn't see it with her own eyes, she wouldn't have believed it. The scene of Shui Yimo and Shinjuli's wedding suddenly flashed in her mind. At that time, the bridal chamber was decorated with a few strands of red silk. Shinjuli didn't even bother to wear a wedding dress. He only wore a white robe with a plum blossom embroidered on the corner as the only red color. She thought that he was destined to have no fate with bright red, but it turned out that things could change. Her gaze fell on the main hall. Once upon a time, she felt warm in her heart when she saw this. But now, this bright red color made her heart even colder. She just wanted to laugh. He really changed a lot for Lizine. It seemed like he thought that Lizine had been wronged, so he wanted to make it up to her with a grand wedding. She knew that she had hurt Lizine badly, but with Shinjuli's superb medical skills, he would definitely be able to help her recover. The image of Lizine's smug eyes flashed before her eyes. Brother D dotes on me a lot. He can't leave me even for a moment. Ning Xuema lowered her eyes, her lips curling into a smile. She didn't care how Shinjuli doted on Lizine. She also didn't care how Shinjuli would treat her as an intruder. She only had one thought, to kill Lizine and avenge her child. As for the rest, he could only deal with whatever came his way. She charged straight into the main hall. No one was allowed to enter Heavenly Sound Peak except for Di Zun's direct disciples, and it was night time, so there was no one on Heavenly Sound Peak. Ning Xuema also knew Shinjuli's temper, so she didn't find it strange that there was no one else here. She was very familiar with Shinjuli's bedroom, so she didn't make any turns and went straight to the place where Lizine used to rest. That place was beside Shinjuli's bedroom. Lizine had suffered such a serious injury this time, so she must be resting there. But she didn't expect that the small side hall where Lizine stayed was gone. Chapter 1532. She couldn't even find a shadow of it. That's weird. Could it be that Shinjuli had used some kind of enchantment to hide it? Ning Xuema circled the area 3 times, but she couldn't find any trace of that small side chamber. She couldn't find any enchantment either. She stood there in a daze, and her gaze landed on Shinjuli's bedroom. Could it be that he arranged for Lizine to be treated in his bedroom for safety reasons? Anyway, they were going to get married soon, right? With Shinjuli's character, it wasn't that he wouldn't do such a thing. At this point, Ning Xuema was too lazy to think. Her mind was filled with the word revenge, and she refused to think about anything else. Since she thought of this, she naturally didn't hesitate to barge into Shinjuli's bedroom. The last time she barged in, Shinjuli had set up a very powerful enchantment outside his bedroom, and she couldn't barge in at all. This time, however, it was exceptionally smooth. The enchantment he set up outside his bedroom was actually broken by her easily. However, after entering, she was greatly disappointed. The bedroom was cold and empty, and there was no one inside. Of course, there was no Lizine. Ning Xuema hadn't been to his bedroom for a long time. Although she only took a glance this time, she knew that the layout inside had changed completely. The once moon-white bed curtains had been replaced with a light blue one, and there was a vivid drawing of a snow-white little fox. That little fox was squatting in a bamboo forest, and a few tails were swaying behind it. Ning Xuema's eyes narrowed slightly and she took a step back. She remembered that Lizine was a white fox and it seemed like it was drawn on the curtains. Since Lizine wasn't here, she couldn't be bothered to stay here for another second. She turned around and left. She searched the heavenly sound peak like a whirlwind, but she still couldn't find Lizine. Where would Shinjuli hide her? The Sun Moon sect was so big, where was she going to find her? She stood there and only felt that her head was buzzing and she was at a loss. She pondered for a moment before descending the Tianyin peak. She saw a few disciples of the Sun Moon sect walking towards her. Ning Xuemo recognized two of them. They had entered the Sun Moon sect at the same time as her. Each of them had a festive item in their hands. Although they were of different varieties, they were all bright red without exception. These people had excited looks on their faces. They did not see the invisible Ning Xuemo as they walked and talked. I never thought that we would be able to see the ancestor get married in our lifetime. I'm so excited just thinking about it. Yes. Even now, I still don't think it's real. This time, Guild Master Yi Lu has instructed us to do everything to the best of our ability. He couldn't be careless or leave any flaws behind. He also said that this was the ancestor's personal order. Therefore, you must carefully check the things in your hands and make sure that there is no mistake. I understand. This time I will choose the red pearls one by one. I heard that Guild Master Yelu went to buy Luoxi again. He said he was going to find the biggest Shen pearl to embed on the big red Shi character. How generous. It's really generous. Looks like the ancestor is serious this time. I just don't know who the bride is. Do you still need to ask? Of course it's Miss Lizine. That's true, but I heard that Miss Lu was seriously injured. I haven't seen her come out these few days. And I heard about this too. The ancestor didn't appear either. He probably went to treat her injuries? This grand wedding should be to compensate her. Chapter 1533. Lady Lu is so lucky. The few of them chatted as they walked, unusually cheerful. Ning Xuema hid in the darkness and suddenly wanted to laugh. She also suddenly felt tired. Shinjuli had hidden Lizine very well. She would not be able to find her even if she searched for 3 days and 3 nights in a row. She didn't want to waste any more energy, so she used the most direct method. She lowered her eyes and thought for a moment, then suddenly appeared in front of the few of them. I'm sorry, everyone. The sound transmission bell on the peak of the Sun Moon Sect's mountain, which represented the occurrence of a major event, suddenly rang. The sound of the bell reverberated throughout the entire Sun Moon Sect, alarming all the Sun Moon Sect disciples. It was chaos on Buddha Lotus Mountain. No one knew what had happened, but when the bell rang, all the disciples had to put aside their most important work and rush to the plaza where they gathered. The plaza could hold thousands of people, and it was the place where the Sun Moon Sect disciples gathered when something major happened. And at this moment, there were a few people standing in midair in the plaza. 4 of them were the Sun Moon Sect disciples. They stood in front, their bodies stiff and their expressions a little strange. And behind them there was a girl in a red dress. She had beautiful eyebrows and beautiful eyes, and her silver hair fluttered in the wind. The moment everyone saw the girl's face, they were all stunned. Ning Xuema, the one who was expelled from the sect by the ancestor 10 years ago. The one who had always been the taboo of the Sun Moon Sect. The one who shocked everyone with her dance a few days ago at the ancestor's engagement banquet. Why did she appear again? What's with her hair? Why is it all white? Also, why did she capture 4 of her fellow disciples? Everyone was confused and they didn't know how to react to Ning Xuema, who was standing in midair. Yelu Jing and wasn't on the mountain, but the other elders of the Sun Moon Sect were. They didn't know what had happened, so they all rushed over on their swords. There were many capable people in the Sun Moon Sect, and there were naturally many who knew how to fly on their swords. So when they arrived, they surrounded Ning Xuema. Ning Xuema, what is the meaning of this? The person who asked the question was the 13th disciple of the ancestor. This person was the coldest and most old-fashioned. He was usually not on the mountain, but this time was a coincidence. Where's Lizine? Ning Xuema didn't stand on ceremony and asked directly. The people below looked at each other with blank faces. Obviously they didn't know where Lizine was hiding. The 13th disciple frowned. Why are you looking for her? Ning Xuema, you were once a disciple of the Sun Moon Sect. Do you know that kidnapping a disciple of the Sun Moon Sect is a taboo of the Sun Moon Sect? Ning Xuema smiled lightly. How could she not know? Kidnapping a disciple of the Sun Moon Sect? Kill him without mercy. This was the iron law of the Sun Moon Sect. But now she didn't care at all. For a person who didn't even care about life and death, any discipline was meaningless. Tell me where Lizine is hiding and I'll let them go. Ning Xuema stated her condition. Dream on. How can a disciple of the Sun Moon sect be threatened? Ning Xuema, I advise you to quickly let them go and wait for the ancestor to punish you when he comes back. Otherwise, I'm afraid you won't be able to bear the consequences this time. Ning Xuema smiled lightly. Her smile was beautiful, but her eyes were cold. Every injustice has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. I only want to find Lizine. I'll give you 7.5 minutes. Either you tell me where she is or you collect the corpses of these people. Ning Xuemo raised her hand, and at the same time, 4 flying daggers flew towards the backs of the 4 captured people. They stopped when they touched their skin. Chapter 1534. She smiled again. My patience is limited. Don't disappoint me. She stood in midair, her silver hair fluttering in the wind. Her eyes were slightly red, and her smile was beautiful and enchanting. The disciples of the Sun Moon sect were speechless. Ning Xuema understood the disciples of the Sun Moon sect. She knew that they were all stubborn. If she interrogated them like this, there was a high chance that they wouldn't tell her. She didn't expect them to tell her where Lizine was. She was only doing this to force Xinjuli out. Then she would put an end to it completely. She believed that most of the disciples of the Sun Moon sect didn't know where Lizine was, but there should be some who could contact Xinjuli. He should be with Lizine. If she forced him out, she might be able to force out Lizine's whereabouts. She was very tired, very tired. It was as if there was a flood in her body, constantly attacking her nerves. Her mind would go blank from time to time and she would be in a daze. Her actions couldn't be judged by common sense. If it was in the past, with her intelligence, she definitely wouldn't use such a stupid method. She would hide in the inner circle of the Sun Moon sect and slowly ask around. Once she found out, she would take action. But now she didn't have much time left. She raised her head and looked at the sky. There were white clouds piling up like mountains in the sky. Every white cloud had a faint golden rim. At first glance, it looked like rays of light from the sun behind the white clouds. But now it was nighttime. Where would the sun come from? Tonight was the first night of the new year, and there was no moon. There seemed to be thunder rolling in the sky. The sound was very soft and almost couldn't be heard, so no one paid attention to it. Everyone's attention was focused on Ning Xuema. They were afraid that if she raised her hand, someone would die an unnatural death. Now Ning Xuema's martial arts were terrifyingly profound. She could completely subdue someone with a raise of her hand. The elders and protectors of the Sun Moon sect were all experts in martial arts. When Ning Xuema made her move, they knew that her martial arts were unfathomable. There was probably no one present who could be her opponent. Xuema, don't do anything stupid. Release our fellow disciples first. Helian Shao finally arrived. In the eyes of the Sun Moon sect, Ning Xuema's actions were practically disgraceful. Once she slipped up and was captured, it would be difficult for her to escape the death penalty. Helian Shao was originally cultivating in seclusion at the back of the mountain, but after he heard about it, he couldn't care about anything else and hurried over. He wanted to persuade Ning Xuema to rein in the horse at the edge of the cliff, lest she did something irreversible. However, when he saw Ning Xuema's appearance clearly, he was stunned. Her hair. Why did her hair turn white? He stared blankly for a moment before calling out. Ning Xuema lowered her eyes and glanced at him, but ignored him completely. She seemed to be calculating something with her fingers. After a moment, she smiled softly and said, "No one said anything?" Her voice was cold and eerie, causing the 4 Sun Moon sect disciples who had been captured to instantly shiver. Originally, they thought that Ning Xuema might not really hurt them because they were from the same sect. However, they didn't dare to think so now. They could already clearly feel the ice-cold chill when the tip of the knife touched their flesh. The expressions of the people below all changed. The flying knife that Ning Xuema had released just now had a lustrous green tip, as if it was smeared with poison. They were very clear that Ning Xuema's poison skills were superb. Ning Xuema, if you really hurt a few of your fellow disciples, then there's no turning back. Let them go first. 13th senior brother's face was as gloomy as water. Mini theater. Little Apple, you seem to be very depressed? Of course. I haven't appeared for a long time, and the girls outside are already missing me. You're too boorish, too careless. Master is PK goddess voting, and he's afraid that your goddess will turn into a tomboy. Nonsense, when have I, Kiran, been boorish? I've always been very gentle, okay? Speaking of which, what's up with the goddess voting? You don't admit that you're careless. You don't even know such a big thing. Go and look at the pinned post in the comments section. There's a reward for voting. Reward? Kiran immediately widened his eyes. What reward? Master said that the goddess PK will start at 3 p.m. today. There's a guarantee of at least 8 chapters, more than 1,000 votes and an additional chapter. So on and so forth. Wow. That's so good. Also, there's a reward for canvassing for votes. What reward? What reward? Tell me quickly. Canvassing for 10 people, cash red packet for 2 yuan. Canvassing for 20 people, cash red packet for 5 yuan. Canvassing for 30 people, cash red packet for 10 yuan or a key ring. Canvassing for 40 people, autographed book. Canvassing for 50 people, autographed book plus cash red packet for 10 yuan. Canvassing for 80 plus people, mystery gift pack. Hey little apple, where are you going? I'm not done yet. Stupid Phoenix, I'm not going to chat with you anymore. I'm going to the Kirin clan to recruit people. Chapter 1535. Ning Xuema sighed softly. Looks like you've all turned a deaf ear to my words. With a flick of her finger, a dagger pierced into the back of one of them. That person's eyes widened, and his body swayed as he fell from mid-air. 13th senior brother's expression changed, and he caught that person with a wave of his sleeve. After taking a closer look, his face turned green. That person's face was green and green blood was flowing out of his back. There was no sign of life. She was really ruthless. Everyone's expression changed. Yilu Jing, and had gone to the Jade Drop Sea. That was the blind spot of the voice transmission talisman, so before he left, he handed over all the matters of the Sun Moon sect to the upright 13th senior brother and the 8 guardians on the mountain. This 13th senior brother didn't have much of a relationship with Ning Xuema, but 4 of the 8 guardians had drunk wine with Ning Xuema before, and they looked after her quite well. Now that she had suddenly done such a thing, their expressions changed. When Ning Xuema had entered Xinjiuli's tutelage, she had spent most of her time traveling with him. Thus, only Yilu Jing, and could guess the way she interacted with him and the ambiguous feelings between them. The others weren't too sure, but they knew that the ancestor had looked after this little disciple very well. When Xinjiuli got engaged, Ning Xuema's dance gave everyone a new perspective. They could feel that the ancestor and Ning Xuema did have some feelings, but things had changed with the passage of time. Now there was Lu Ziyin by the ancestor's side. Ning Xuema had thrown her zither and left at that time, and now she suddenly came back to settle the score with Lu Ziyin. No matter how they looked at it, it seemed like she was obsessed with love and couldn't let go, and was looking for trouble with her love rival. No one understood the whole process, so they could only make inferences based on the clues they knew. Most of the people here had thought that Ning Xuema was a girl who dared to love and hate, and could let go of things easily. Now that they saw her like this, they were all shocked. The rules of the Sun Moon sect were strict, and no one was allowed to violate them. Back then Yilu Jing and had made a small mistake, and had been punished according to the rules. Now that Ning Xuema had caused such trouble, the people below immediately became noisy. 13th senior brother's face was ashen. Among the people present, he had the highest status, and he was also known for being the most impartial and strict. How could he allow Ning Xuema to be so arrogant? With a wave of his hand, the 8 great protectors and 10 great elders quietly spread out around Ning Xuema and surrounded her, sealing off all her escape routes. Ning Xuema was still floating there as if she didn't see them. Her fingertips curled up again as she chuckled. It's almost time. I'll count to 3. If no one says anything, I'll have one more person to die in vain. 1. Xuema, you can't do this. They entered the sect at the same time as you. Back then we played together and fooled around. Everyone really doesn't know where Lu Ziyin is. You can't continue to make mistakes. Helian Shao suddenly flew up on his sword. He was probably really anxious as he rashly crashed into the encirclement. 13th senior brother never would have thought that he would be so reckless. He was unable to stop him and could only stare blankly as he entered Ning Xuema's attack range. His heart almost jumped out of his chest. Helian Shao was the disciple with the highest talent that the Sun Moon sect had accepted in the past few years. He was also the one who had the most hope of breaking through to the heaven stage in the future. He was also Yilu Jing An's proudest disciple, and everyone treated him like a treasure. If anything happened to him. Chapter 1536. The formation that 13th senior brother and the others had set up was an extremely powerful formation of the Sun Moon sect. It was called the 18 Devil Capturing Formation. Once this formation was set up, the people who were surrounded wouldn't be able to escape even if they had 3 heads and 6 arms. They would either be captured or killed on the spot. This formation was personally passed down by the Venerable Emperor. It contained the profound principles of heaven and earth and was extremely powerful. Originally, 13th senior brother's next hand gesture was to activate the formation. He wanted to capture Ning Xuema as a warning to others even if he had to give up the 3 low-level disciples who were captured. However, he didn't expect Helian Shao to be a variable. This brat wasn't helping them to capture people. He was simply adding to the chaos. 13th senior brother's hand gesture was halfway through and he abruptly stopped. Ning Xuema didn't seem to expect Helian Shao to rush over. This brat's movements were as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of her. He was practically standing side by side with the 3 captives. Xuema, don't do anything stupid. He actually went past the 3 captives and directly reached out to grab Ning Xuema's arm. The moment Ning Xuema raised her arm, he shuddered and stood there like a large shield beside Ning Xuema's hand. Ning Xuema, use me as a hostage and break out. Helian Shao transmitted his voice to her. Although he didn't know why Ning Xuema did such a thing, when he saw Ning Xuema appear here with a head of white hair, his heart twisted and almost twisted into a fried dough twist. When he saw the guardians and elders getting into formation, the blood in his chest instantly surged up. He didn't care what Ning Xuema did, but he believed that she must have her own reasons for doing so. He couldn't just watch as she was captured or executed. Therefore, he steeled his heart and seized the opportunity to barge in and become Ning Xuema's human shield. Ning Xuema's eyes flickered. She didn't say anything but suddenly kicked Helian Shao and sent him flying. She only gave him a single word, scram. Helian Shao never thought that Ning Xuema would do this. By the time he reacted, it was already too late. He somersaulted in the air, and by the time he regained his balance, he was already outside the encirclement. He wanted to charge in again, but was stopped by 2 of his fellow disciples. 13th senior brother naturally wouldn't give Helian Shao another chance. With a wave of his hand, the formation was immediately activated. 18 rays of light shot out from these people's hands, flying and intertwining in the air. In the blink of an eye, they formed a net of swords. The tips of the swords were all aimed at Ning Xuema. Ning Xuema, I'll give you another chance. Release the 3 of them. Surrender without a fight. Otherwise, I'll scatter your soul here. 13th senior brother made a hand seal with his finger. Ning Xuema stood there. The heavenly wind billowed her clothes and messed up her hair. Her smile was alluring. She didn't say anything but only gave a response. She flicked her finger, and the 3 flying daggers that were pointed at the backs of the 3 captives instantly pierced their flesh. The 3 of them groaned and fell down from the top one after another. The people below caught them. There were also people who didn't give up and checked the injuries of the 3 captives. They realized that they were the same as the first captive. Their faces were all green, and they were no longer breathing. Ning Xuema, who was in the clouds, laughed. Suddenly, she raised her hand again, and countless green flying daggers appeared on her fingertips. Every one of them was exactly the same as the one she used to kill the 4 captives. She squinted her eyes. Since no one is willing to hand her over, then let's die together with her. She bent her palms slightly, and those flying daggers were about to shoot towards the Sun Moon sect disciples below. Chapter 1537. She bent her palms slightly, and those daggers were about to shoot towards her fellow disciples from the Sun Moon sect. Her current martial arts could only be described as terrifying. She could kill people with just a wave of her hand. Furthermore, she was so cruel and merciless that she could kill her fellow disciples while laughing. This woman was crazy. It was unforgivable for such a person to not be punished. 13th senior brother shouted angrily, Ning Xuema, you're courting death. You can't blame anyone else. He clenched his fist, and the flying swords in the sky were finally activated. Like a rain of locusts, they all shot towards Ning Xuema. Ning Xuema faintly smiled. Her fingers, which had been forming hand seals, suddenly loosened. The dark green daggers coiled around her fingertips suddenly disappeared without a trace. She didn't dodge or evade the flying swords that filled the sky. Instead, she opened her arms and welcomed the sword lights. The flying swords were swift and fierce, and the strong wind that they brought along caused her long hair and clothes to dance violently. She closed her eyes and welcomed those flying swords with a smile of relief on her lips. Let's end it like this. She couldn't find Lizine to avenge her child, and she couldn't force Shinjuli to come out. Then she would die in the hands of his subordinates, which was equivalent to dying in his hands. It was also considered a relief. And it all. She didn't want to live anymore. Towards that person she still hated him after all. In the end she couldn't forgive him. Since she couldn't forgive him, then she would never have to forgive him. No matter if it was hate or love, everything would end at this moment. She didn't have to have those recurring nightmares anymore. She didn't have to despair until her hair turned white because she couldn't take revenge. It turned out that she returned to this world for this ending. It didn't matter if he cared or didn't care. She wanted to use this method to end herself. In her previous life, in this life, she had completely repaid everything that she owed him. She didn't want to have another life. She just wanted to end it properly. This demon-subduing array could not only kill a person's physical body, but it could also kill a person's soul. Therefore, she forced them to use this array for this ending. Stop! An urgent shout came from the horizon. The sound almost shook the sky. A white light flew towards those flying swords like a raging tide. However, it was all too late. Those flying swords had already been launched and the distance was so close, yet the other party did not do anything to block them. Even if those people sensed that something was wrong and wanted to retreat, they could not do so. By the time the white light collided with the flying swords, more than 10 of them had already pierced into Ning Xuema's body. Blood spurted out from her body. Her body swayed in the air and fell to the ground. Xuema! A shout almost tore through the air. A person flew over, his snow-white robe drawing a cloud-like arc in the air. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Ning Xuema. He raised his hand to catch her falling from the air and held her tightly in his arms. Ning Xuema. His voice was already trembling, his body was trembling, and his face was ghastly pale. He hugged her tightly and wanted to say something, yet his throat seemed to be blocked by a ball of cotton, and he directly choked on his words. Ancestor? Everyone couldn't help but stare blankly. The person who came was Shinjiuli. It was also the first time he appeared in front of the disciples without a mask. If it wasn't for his trademark white robe, and if it wasn't for his majestic aura, the disciples wouldn't dare to recognize him. Everyone was stunned and kneeled down again. Ancestor. Master. Chapter 1538. 13th Senior Brother's expression also changed. He had followed his master for so many years, but this was the first time he had seen his master lose his composure like this. Had he committed a grave mistake? He also knelt down and his nervous heart almost jumped out of his chest. Shinjiuli did not care about the crowd at all. There was no one else in his eyes. The moment he hugged Ning Xuema in his arms and saw Ning Xuema's appearance, his heart trembled uncontrollably. White hair. Her hair was actually all white. Needless to say, it was caused by her mood fluctuating too much after she woke up. The dress Ning Xuema was wearing was not the dress he gave her at that time. Instead, it was an illusion she created herself. Although this dress was pretty, it did not have any defensive capabilities. The swords that were shot out from the demon-subduing array were all imbued with extremely strong psychokinesis. Not only did it hurt the body, it also hurt the soul. Even if Shui Ilan was injured by the demon-subduing array, he might not be able to escape with his life. Not to mention Ning Xuema, who had not recovered from her serious injuries. Her body was hit by 8 flying swords. Those flying swords were not real, but they were more powerful than any real thing. If the real thing was stabbed, as long as it was not pulled out, blood would not gush out. However, those 8 swords were not real, but they could cause the same result as real swords. They were all stabbed at her vital points, and blood was gushing out from her wounds. Her originally black hair turned white and fluttered in the wind. Her originally flower-like dimples turned a bleak white. She fell into his arms covered in blood, and it made him feel like his heart had been stabbed dozens of times. It was so painful that it almost flipped over. He did not care about anything else. His palm continuously touched her body to stop her bleeding, and applied the best medicine for her wounds. Xuema, hang in there. I won't let you die. Hang in there for me. He spoke in a low trembling voice. His hands did not stop moving as he treated her wounds. Ning Xuema's eyes were black and did not have any light. Although her eyes were open, there was no light in them. She raised her hand to push him away, but she did not have any strength left. She did not want him to save her. She didn't want to lie in his arms. The way he treated her reminded her of how he treated Lizine's wounds. Perhaps he had just finished treating Lizine and rushed over because he felt that the woman was fine. She had once longed for this embrace. She never knew that she could crazily desire a person. How many nights had she dreamt of meeting him in the middle of the night? In her dream, she threw herself into his arms and hugged his waist tightly. Like a child, she complained about her grievances and cried loudly. The pillow would be soaked when she woke up. For this day she risked her life to travel through time and space. For this day she had tried her best to encourage herself when she couldn't find her way in space. Even if she was suffocating to death, she still persisted. Now that she had finally returned to his embrace, she no longer had that kind of desire. He hugged her tightly, very tightly. She didn't feel warm, she only felt disgusted. She didn't want to stay in this embrace any longer. When she thought of how Lizine was still acting coquettishly in his arms just a moment ago, she had the urge to vomit. She really threw it up. Large mouthfuls of blood spurted out from her mouth and sprayed all over Shinjuli's body. Shinjuli's expression changed. Her heart was already at the critical stage of breaking, but she still wanted to struggle without caring about her life. Chapter 1539. The psychokinesis in her body was surging, but it did not automatically repair her heart meridian. Instead, it was trying to forcibly tear it apart. She was asking for death. She was asking for death. Shinjuli. She called out his name in front of everyone. Her voice seemed to float from the sky, unbelievably ethereal. Don't talk. Xioma, don't talk. There are too many misunderstandings between us. When you get better, I will slowly explain everything to you. Everything is a misunderstanding. Believe me. Come, be good. Don't try to resist me. Let me connect your heart meridian. Shinjuli did not care about the blood on his chest. He pressed his palm on her back and poured his psychokinesis into her body. After entering her body, it condensed into a line and quickly flowed along her blood vessels, swimming directly to her heart. He tried his best to calm himself down. Ning Xuema's life was now in his hands. If he was not careful, her heart meridian would be completely broken. However, when his psychokinesis reached her heart, it encountered resistance. The resistance was not strong, but Shinjuli did not dare to move at all. Her heart meridian could not withstand a little fluctuation, so he could not forcibly enter to repair it. Xioma, don't try to stop me from saving you. He quickly said, I won't give up. I know you hate me. Let's wait until you get better and then you can settle accounts with me, okay? I'll let you kill me or cut me, but let me connect your heart meridian first. He tried to move his psychokinesis forward a little, but the resistance was even stronger. Momo, you are also a cultivator. You should know that even if you die now, I have the means to resurrect you. Don't be angry anymore. There was a threat in his voice. Ning Xuema turned a deaf ear to his threat. She looked up at the sky. The white clouds in the sky had gathered around them. There was a golden light flashing in the depths of the white clouds, as if there was a golden dragon hiding in them, looking for an opportunity to pounce out and destroy the world. Boom. A sudden clap of thunder finally crossed the sky. Everyone's attention was originally on Di Zun and Ning Xuema. The sudden clap of thunder startled them and they looked up. When they saw the strange scene in the sky, they were overwhelmed with horror. This was the tribulation thunder. And it was the highest level of tribulation lightning. Who wanted to transcend the tribulation at such a sensitive time? Shinjuli also abruptly raised his head. The moment he saw it clearly, his body suddenly stiffened. Just as he froze, Ning Xuema, who was originally powerless in his arms, suddenly struck his chest with her palm. Shinjuli was caught off guard and his body swayed from the slap. Suddenly he felt an emptiness in his arms. Ning Xuema, who was covered in blood, rose directly into the sky. The golden light in the sky instantly enveloped her and enveloped her. Momo. Shinjuli pounced on her, trying to pull her out. But before his hand could even touch the corner of her clothes, it was blocked by the golden light surrounding her body. The moment the golden light enveloped Ning Xuema, the turbulent white clouds in the sky instantly turned golden. Streaks of golden lightning flashed between the clouds as they prepared to strike. Golden lightning tribulation. Ning Xuema was actually going to cross her tribulation at this time, and it was a golden lightning tribulation. How could this be? She was only at the 9th level of the Earth realm. Even if she wanted to ascend to the 1st level of the Heaven realm, it should be a purple lightning tribulation or a silver lightning tribulation. How could it be a golden lightning tribulation with the strongest evil aura in the world? This kind of tribulation could only be crossed by extremely high-level immortals or demons. What's more, this golden lightning was faintly shining with an extremely bright purple. Even in Shinjuli's memory, he had never seen this kind of lightning tribulation. Chapter 1540. Even if Ning Xuema was at her peak, she wouldn't be able to survive such a lightning tribulation, let alone the weak Ning Xuema now. Momo. Another shout came from afar, and a red figure flew over from the sky. It was Shui Yilan, and Rong Yuetian was following behind him. When the two of them saw the scene in front of them, their expressions changed. Shui Yilan rushed into the golden light without hesitation. Momo. Bang. He crashed directly into the golden light and was rebounded violently, almost causing him to fall off the cloud. He quickly steadied himself and looked at Ning Xuema, who was shrouded in the golden light. His eyes were red. He rushed in recklessly. Momo, let me go in and block the lightning for you. When anyone was going through a lightning tribulation, the light would only cover the person going through the tribulation. If others wanted to block the lightning for him or her, they had to get the approval of the person going through the tribulation. In other words, whether it was Xinjiuli or Shui Yilan, if they wanted to block the lightning for Ning Xuema, they had to get Ning Xuema's approval. At this moment, the golden lightning with a hint of red was about to strike. Ning Xuema's red dress was shrouded in it. She closed her eyes slightly and looked up at the sky, not looking at the people outside at all. Ning Xuema, let me go in. You can't block this lightning. Xinjiuli's palms pressed against the golden light, and he quickly said with a pale face. No matter how calm he was at this moment, his hands were trembling. He was really scared. He had never been so scared. If he lost her now, it would be an eternal loss. If she couldn't survive the golden lightning tribulation, her soul would really be destroyed. Her soul would really disappear from the world, and no matter what he did, she would never come back. A huge panic engulfed him. If she didn't come back, if she disappeared just like that, then what was the use of him staying in this world? He was a god who thought that he was omnipotent, but now he couldn't even block the lightning tribulation for his woman. Ning Xuema, you can't be so cruel. I know this is your best revenge, but I don't want this kind of revenge. He recklessly rammed into that damned golden light. Xuema, listen to me. You've misunderstood me. I'm not engaged to Lu Ziyin. I'm only engaged with her because I owe her a favor. I'm blocking the lightning tribulation. I like you. Let me go in and block it. Xuema, listen to me. Xuema, it was the first time in his life. The first time in his life he was pleading with her. Unfortunately, the person in the golden light did not seem to hear his words. She only opened her arms and faced the sky. Her eyes were slightly closed and her eyelashes were long. The expression on her face was very calm, as if she had finally completely let go, as if she was welcoming a grand destruction. That's it. It's to end. She be to hear B's Shua's be to hero. Or maybe she's too lazy to believe him anymore. Ning Xuema. Xinjiuli shouted angrily and hit the golden light with both his palms. He was a god. He didn't believe that he couldn't break through the golden light and barge in. After all, Ning Xuema was still enveloped by the golden light. If he forcefully attacked the golden light, it would shatter the golden light and shake Ning Xuema who was inside it. She might even lose her life. Therefore, he didn't want to use this move unless it was an emergency. But now, the golden light was about to hit her. Part 2. Chapter 1541. If he did not make a decision now, Ning Xuema, who was enveloped by the golden light, would be struck by the lightning tribulation. Not only would her physical body be destroyed, even her soul would be destroyed. Thus he had no choice but to attack forcefully. He only wanted to pull her out and protect her in his arms against the lightning tribulation. She might not be able to survive this time, but he could protect her soul. As long as her soul was still there, he could forcefully reverse the cycle of reincarnation and rebuild her body. Ning Xuema, no matter what, you have to give me a chance. Give me a chance to redeem myself. Give me a chance to explain everything to you. The power of a god could destroy the heavens and earth. The palm wind that contained all the power of a god could not be described with mere words. The blazing white light collided with the golden light, and an extremely terrifying sound of collision rang out. It was truly earth-shattering. The surrounding trees were uprooted from the impact and their leaves withered. Not far away, the pavilions and terraces collapsed from the impact, turning into countless pieces of rubble that flew into the air. This sound of collision was like a magnitude 8 earthquake. Even the ground beneath their feet was twisted and distorted. Although the martial arts of the Sun Moon sect disciples present were not weak, they were still unable to withstand such a frightening impact. Although everyone tried to defend themselves, they were still shaken into a mess. Those who were slightly weaker directly spat out blood from the impact. The unbreakable golden light finally cracked open under Xinjiuli's fatal attack. Xinjiuli was about to fly in. Boom! The golden light that surrounded Ning Xuema suddenly exploded with a layer of bright red light. That red light instantly filled the gap that the golden light had just cracked open. Xinjiuli's body collided with the red light, and he was once again stopped in his tracks. Almost at that instant, a thunderous sound rang out beside his ears. A bolt of golden lightning with hints of purple finally struck down. Ning Xuema, who was within the golden light, did not have any intention of resisting at all. She was directly struck by that purplish golden lightning. Momo! Xuema! The two figures pounced on the golden light in vain, but they were bounced away again. The golden lightning did not care if the person in the light resisted or not. Once it started, it would strike again and again at the petite figure in the golden light. The golden lightning illuminated the ground, and the brightness was not something that the human eye could accept. Furthermore, the sound of the tribulation thunder was not something that humans could withstand. It was so loud that it caused their ears to buzz. One after another, the sound of thunder exploded in their ears. Almost everyone subconsciously closed their eyes. He covered his ears. Some of the new disciples were so scared that they squatted on the ground, unable to stand up. This was probably the first time they had seen such a situation. Finally, the thunder that shook the sky came to an abrupt stop. Finally, the golden lightning disappeared. Finally, the golden clouds in the sky turned white again as if nothing had happened. The golden light finally disappeared, but the person shrouded in the golden light also disappeared. There was not even a trace of her in the air, as if this person had never appeared in this world. The wind blew, and there was still the fragrance of grass and trees in the wind, but she no longer existed. Shinjuli stood in the same place blankly. His clothes, which were always neatly buttoned, were in a mess. His snow-white robe was stained with blood and mud, and it was almost impossible to see its original color. Embarrassing. For the first time in his life, the venerable sovereign, who was like a god, was in such a sorry state. All of his elegance seemed to have disappeared. He stared blankly at the place where the golden light had once been. It was as if the figure that he loved and hated was still there, as if she had not left. Chapter 1542. Countless memories whistled into his mind and converged into a vast ocean that practically drowned his entire consciousness. Ginseng baby. Come into my arms. When he first met her, she grabbed him like he was a ginseng baby. Jiozun? That's a weird name. Are you trying to be like Dizun? He's an old man, you're not. Be good, be obedient. Would you believe me if I said I came from another time? The guns, cannons and rocket launchers you saw in my dreams are all from my time. Han Shanyue, I don't have any grudges with you, right? Why are you scheming against me? Master Han, I knew you would come to save me. Great God, I'll call you Great God. In my time, Great God is a very powerful title, it's an honorific. Great God, come, let me tease you. Great God, what do you take me for? Don't tell me you want me to be your concubine? Let me tell you, although I like you, I will never be your concubine. Don't even think about it. Great God, why do you have to wait until Earth rank level 8 to tell me the answer? You're keeping me in suspense again. Forget it, I'll wait until I reach level 8 where nothing now you're not allowed to kiss me again. Great God, you should lose weight, you're so heavy. Great God, moi. Great God, are you going to be gone for a long time? Okay, 10 days, I'll wait here for you to come back. I promise I'll be good, I won't run around. Wave after wave of memories surged through his mind like a tidal wave. It made his face even paler, his body even stiffer. Memories. All the memories about her were like seawater. Every wave was floating with her figure, her voice and her smile. She called him Great God, she liked him so much that even a blind person could see it. She was proud because he couldn't give her an answer to marry her, and she didn't want to be intimate with him. She was such a proud and carefree person. She had waited for him on the Tianyin Peak for a month. In the end, she was plotted against by Wu Mo and almost lost her life. She had been locked up by Shui Yilan for 10 years. After being rescued by him, she was so happy that she was about to explode. When she was in his arms, she clutched his clothes tightly. She looked like she was crying and laughing at the same time. She was laughing, but her eyes were red. She had always loved him. Like moths to a flame. He had asked her to wait for him for 10 days, but in the end she had waited for 10 years. In the end, he would lose his memory and treat her as a stranger, only treating her as his disciple. In the end, he only remembered her previous life and confused her current life with her previous life. After recovering the memories of his past life, he had treated her as Shui Mo from the start. He had even suspected that she had come to his side for some unknown purpose. Shinjuli, I'm Ning Shuema, not Shui Mo. Don't always put her debt on my head. Why do you always treat me as her? So what if she's my previous life? There's no need for me to always bear her debt, right? Why do you always treat me as her? I've said it before, I'm Ning Shuema, not Shui Mo. She lived a carefree life and didn't want to be burdened by her previous life. But to her, the two men in her life both treated her as another woman and erased everything about Ning Shuema. He only remembered everything about Shui Mo, so he always thought that she loved Shui Yilan. Chapter 1543. How could she know she was wrong? Everything was wrong. No matter if it was the previous life or this life, she loved him, always loved him. She had never loved anyone else. She desperately escaped from that black hole, desperately returned to this continent, just to return to his side, just to have a happy family of 3, but he gave her a slap in the face. I came to sincerely ask Ancestor for advice. Ancestor, do you really want to marry Miss Luzine? Indeed, it has nothing to do with me. It's me who asked. I wish Ancestor and Miss Lu to grow old together and be forever in love. Formed by the Pipa and then scattered by the Pipa. Ancestor, the fate between you and me ends here. He slapped her, who had a miscarriage, away and left with another woman. Shinjuli, I hate you. You will regret it. Scenes of the past were as clear as yesterday and all his memories came back. She was proud of herself, she was smiling, she was angry, she was happy, she was smiling. It turned out that even without the existence of the previous life, she had truly walked into his life. She was Ning Shuema, not Shui Yimo. She was a free and unrestrained woman from another time and space, not the demon princess who carried too much on her shoulders. Shuema. Shuema. His body trembled more and more and his face became paler and paler. Amnesia. He was a coward in the previous life. In order to forget her, in order to not suffer anymore, he made such a frequent amnesia oracle. But he didn't expect that after going around in circles he would fall in love with her again, and because of this damned amnesia, he would completely lose her now. Ning Shuema, you are ruthless. Using such a tragic method to choose to let go, using such a tragic method to take revenge on me, Ning Shuema, how can you be so ruthless? How can you can't. I can't let you go like this. Even if I have to reverse heaven and earth, reverse yin and yang, I want you back. Shuema, didn't you do everything possible to let me recover my memories? I recovered. You came back, bastard. In the end you killed her. Shui Yilan finally came back to his senses. His eyes were completely red. Red light shot out from both of his palms as he recklessly attacked Shinjuli. Shinjuli didn't even know how to dodge. He just stood there and the candlelight around his tall figure seemed to elongate his back. Rangi Yuishinlin was finally angry. He didn't expect that Ning Shuema would end up like this. When Ning Shuema disappeared after being struck by the tribulation lightning, his heart almost sank into hell. He blamed himself and regretted it. Before Shinjuli left, he asked him to keep an eye on Ning Shuema and not let anything happen to her. However, he thought that she was too stupid to do anything and left her alone in the house. Now that Dizwa and Dizwa had caused such a ruckus, he had to take half of the responsibility. If he had stayed by her side and explained everything to her the moment she woke up, perhaps she wouldn't have forgiven Dizwa temporarily. However, she wouldn't have been in such despair to the point where her hair turned white. She wouldn't have not resisted the tribulation lightning at all and wouldn't have allowed others to block it for her. She was clearly asking for death. She was clearly using her final and tragic method to take revenge on Shinjuli. Rangi Yuishinlin had been busy helping Shinjuli break the golden light. When Shinjuli broke the golden light with his palm, he was almost deafened. He was also busy helping the Sun Moon sect disciples who had vomited blood from the shock to quickly recover. He didn't want more people to die because of the Emperor's loss of self-control. Chapter 1544. When the golden lightning of tribulation came crashing down, he knew that everything was over. Now that he saw Shui Yilan attack Shinjuli, he was enraged. He lifted his fan and blocked Shui Yilan's killing moves. Are you crazy? Shui Yilan, if it weren't for you coming to the island to cause trouble, she wouldn't have left Carefree Island. If it weren't for you shamelessly sticking by her side, Dizwa wouldn't have had those misunderstandings. Do you still have the face to blame him? Shui Yilan, you are the bane of their relationship. Shui Yilan's face paled once more. He staggered back several steps and slumped down his sleeves. Yes, blame me? Amo Wuji suddenly laughed. Blame me? Momo, I've wronged you. With a wild laugh, he flew up and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Rongyue Tianlan didn't think that Mo Wuji would leave so quickly without any hesitation. He finally relaxed. In these troubled times, if this demon were to go crazy here, the consequences would be unimaginable. As he looked up, he saw Shinjuli's movements. His complexion changed. Shinjuli stood there, turning a deaf ear to everything around him. His slender jade-like fingers were dripping with blood, but he didn't care. His fingers moved in the air again and again, and a white light burst out from his fingertips. This was the most powerful soul-summoning technique. With his own divine power as a guide, even if someone's soul was scattered, he could use this technique to summon back a few wisps. Dizwa, you can't do this. Rongyue Tianlan rushed over wanting to stop him. But Shen Jiuli clearly had an enchantment around him. Rongyue Tianlan was blocked outside, causing him to panic. Not only was using this method to defy the will of the heavens, but it also consumed a great deal of divine power. If something went wrong, Shen Jiuli might disappear, not to mention that Shen Jiuli had used forbidden techniques and divine power again and again. He was already at the end of his tether. Rongyue Shenlin even found that there was a white light overflowing from his body. This was a sign of the 5 decays of celestial beings. If this great god was allowed to continue like this, perhaps the only god in the world would no longer exist. However, Rongyue Tian couldn't find any way to stop him. Shen Jiuli's movements were very fast. After a while he slowly stopped and looked at his fingertips. His fingertips were empty. He had already used such a method, but he couldn't even summon a fragment of her soul. He didn't say anything. Instead he took a light breath and used it again. Rongyue Tian watched helplessly from the periphery as he used it again and again in despair. Shen Jiuli seemed to have sunk into madness, or perhaps he had sunk into an abyss of despair. Using such a method to punish himself. The air around him seemed to have sensed his emotions. The originally clear sky was suddenly overcast with dark clouds. Thunder and lightning flashed in the distance one after another. He did not know where the heavy rain had come from. The birds in the sky screamed and soared into the sky. The mountains nearby and the ground beneath his feet were trembling. If God's emotions were too intense, it would affect the climate of the entire continent. It might even cause the sky to fall and the earth to crack. The consequences were unimaginable. If this went on, he would also die. Rongyue Tianlan knew that she should stop him, but she couldn't think of any way to do so. She was so anxious that she walked around in circles. Her hand accidentally touched something in her sleeve. It was hard and slightly warm. There seemed to be an ancient aura circulating on it. When Shen Jiuli's palm struck the golden light, it had caused the sky to fall and the earth to crack. Chapter 1545. When Shen Jiuli had struck the golden light with his palm, it had caused the sky to fall and the earth to crack. Coupled with the continuous strikes of the golden lightning, the surrounding large rocks flew up into the sky and fell down one after another. One of the small stones coincidentally fell on Rongyue Tianlan's shoulder, causing a bruise to appear on his shoulder while he was busy. He was about to brush it away when his fingers accidentally touched it. He actually felt a little ancient aura from it. Thus, he casually stuffed the stone into his sleeve and forgot about it in the midst of his busyness. Now that he had accidentally pinched it again, he took it out to take a look. The rock wasn't big. It was about the size of a pebble and was bright red. There were flowing lights changing inside it. He could even feel a little divine power from it. His heart skipped a beat. This rock wasn't an ordinary rock. It seemed to be alive and full of spirituality. It definitely wasn't something that could be produced by the surrounding mountains. What was even more strange was that the aura on it seemed to be similar to Shen Jiuli's. Rongyue Shenlin was used to recognizing treasures, but it was his first time seeing such a strange rock. He looked at the red rock and suddenly thought of Ning Xuema's red dress. This small rock seemed to have fallen from the sky after Ning Xuema was struck by lightning and disappeared. Could it be a relic refined by Ning Xuema? No, a relic shouldn't look like that. No matter what, this rock appeared like that. It also seemed to have Ning Xuema's aura. He didn't hesitate and waved the rock in his hand at Shen Jiuli. Dizwa, look at what this is. It has Miss Ning's aura. Shen Jiuli, who was desperately summoning the spirits, suddenly froze. In the next moment he had already stretched out his hand to Rongyue Shenlin. Give it to me. Rongyue Tianlan placed the stone in his palm and quietly approached him. Dizwa, take a look. Oh my god, he could finally get close to Dizwa. Rongyue Shenlin clenched her fists in her sleeves. Just as she was about to use her celestial technique to knock out Supreme God, who was already at the end of his rope, she suddenly saw his expression as he held the small stone. She was stunned. The hand seal that he had just formed was also silently released. He stared at Shen Jiuli with his eyes wide open. The ancestor's expression was very strange. It can't be, that stone was really Ning Xuema's? Shen Jiuli was holding the small stone, and even his fingers were slightly spasming. The child. The moment he sent his godly power into the stone, he sensed the child's aura. To be more precise, it was the aura of the soul of the fetus in Ning Xuema's womb that he could not find in the Heavenly Book Mountain. That soul had left its mother's body for such a long time, but it was actually very complete. It was even more complete and healthy than when it was in its mother's womb. After all, this was his child. It was the blood of father and son. When he sent his godly power in, that little soul first shrank inside. Then it stretched out a small hand and tried to touch his godly power. Then it simply hugged his godly power with its hands and legs and even rubbed against it. He did not expect it to be hiding here. He did not expect it to still be alive. This was the child that she cared about the most, the child that she cared about with her life. If he could find it a step earlier and let Ning Xuema see it a step earlier, perhaps the outcome would be different. Unfortunately, until the moment her soul dissipated, she still did not know this good news. He held the small stone tightly and looked up at the sky. His body trembled slightly, but he did not speak for a long time. Chapter 1546. When she was Shui Yimo, she stuck to him every day like a dogskin plaster, as if she wouldn't be able to live without him. But in the end, she still didn't hesitate to take his heart blood and leave, all for the sake of saving that man, the man she had depended on for 300 years. Because of that mistake, he lost a disciple in the immortal world. He lost a wound in his heart that could never be healed. He didn't care that she was a witch from the demon world, but he couldn't ignore the man by her side. She hurt him time and time again for that man, and each time she did it without hesitation. In the end, she even left with that man and disappeared for 10 years. In these 10 years she had never appeared. Back then, when he placed her in the medicinal cauldron to refine the devil in her body, he had left a part of his soul to protect her soul. Later on, when she was rescued by Shui Yilan, he had never taken back that small part of his soul. That was why he was able to sense her whereabouts in the Tianxi continent. When he wanted to find her, he was able to find her accurately. Even if she went to outer space, as long as she wasn't too far from the Tianxi continent, he could sense her. For example, the immortal country. When he came back from the immortal country, he was extremely dispirited and locked himself in a place to cultivate. Probably because his mood was too unstable, during his cultivation, his anger leaked out along with his divine qi. As a result, the entire Tianxi continent suffered a disaster. At that time, the Tianxi continent would sometimes rain heavily, and sometimes cold winds would blow. Even in the summer, snowflakes would dance. The climate was extremely abnormal. When he found out, countless crops had frozen to death and countless people had starved to death. He knew that he couldn't go on like this, so he left the Tianxi continent. Probably because his mood was too unstable, or maybe because he was too unlucky, he was hit by an abnormal ray that suddenly appeared in the sky. This ray didn't take his life, but it caused the wound in his abdomen to explode. In the end, he fainted in the country of Jade Water, which was full of fox immortals. He was saved by the Jade Water Fox clan leader. He was a god and wouldn't get hurt easily. Once he got hurt, it couldn't be cured by normal treatment. In addition, his mood was unstable and he didn't have the desire to heal, so it was even harder to heal. It was the Fox clan leader who sacrificed his own fox pearl to heal his injuries. When the Fox clan leader lost the fox pearl, he lost more than half of his power. When it rained, the Fox clan leader experienced the heavenly tribulation at this time. He couldn't withstand the lightning tribulation and his soul dissipated. Before he died, he entrusted his daughter, Lizine, to Xinjiuli and asked him to take care of her on his behalf. When Xinjiuli was injured and unconscious, it was Lizine who took care of him. Xinjiuli didn't tell her his real name and just casually said that his surname was D. Therefore, this Lizine happily called him Brother D every day. He didn't want to have too much interaction with the Fox clan. Originally, he planned to leave after repaying the debt of gratitude, but he didn't expect to encounter such a situation. From the Fox clan leader, he knew that Lizine was carrying a disease in her womb. If a person with this disease couldn't go through a thunder tribulation before he was 3,000 years old, his body would automatically ignite with the red lotus hellfire, and his soul would disappear from the world. Although Lizine was pretty, her talent wasn't that good. It had been close to 3,000 years, but she had only reached Earth stage level 9. She couldn't advance to Heaven stage, so she couldn't go through a thunder tribulation. Chapter 1547. The Fox clan leader's last request was to ask Xinjiuli for help. No matter what, she had to undergo the lightning tribulation when she was 3,000 years old. Xinjiuli agreed. Xinyi's promise was worth 10,000 gold. The spiritual energy in Jishui country wasn't as dense as in Tianxi continent. In order to let Lizine reach heaven rank within 10 years, Xinjiuli brought her back to Tianxi continent. Lizine was a nine-tailed fox, and Shui Yimo's original body was also a nine-tailed fox. Although he was injured by Shui Yimo, he still had a special feeling of caring for nine-tailed foxes. He placed her in a place with the densest spiritual energy to cultivate and gave her all kinds of elixirs to nourish her. However, Lizine was indeed useless and couldn't be compared to Ning Xuema. In these 10 years her psychokinesis progressed slowly. She cultivated to the critical point of Earth rank level 9, but she just couldn't pass it. Shenjili was too lazy to explain his actions to his disciples. Almost on the day he brought Lizine back, he didn't wait for her to take a breath and threw her to a place with the densest spiritual energy for her to cultivate in seclusion. That place had dense spiritual energy and low risk, so Shenjili was very assured and didn't care about her for a year. In the end, after she was released, Lizine's cultivation didn't improve much, but her grievances did. Whenever she saw Shenjili, she would cry like raindrops on pear blossoms. She was locked up to the point that she couldn't speak. Shenjili rarely felt guilty, so he followed her request and brought her down the mountain to see the world. Lizine took the opportunity to ask for this and that. Shenjili didn't lack money the most, so no matter what she wanted, he would satisfy her at any time. Lizine loved to laugh. Her laughter was like a silver bell, which easily influenced others to laugh with her. Shenjili stayed with her. Although he didn't have any thoughts, he didn't annoy her and his mood was a little better. In those years there was no news of Ning Xuema, and he couldn't sense her at all. But after all, she had a part of his soul. He knew that she was still alive, but he didn't know which corner she was living in. He understood that it was time for him to let go. He also had to walk out. Otherwise, the heavenly bestowal continent would suffer another calamity. Therefore, he was also trying his best to adjust his mood so that he could return to his former self. If he wanted to return to the past, he had to return to living alone. Moreover, he was not in the mood to let anyone else stay with him at the heavenly sound peak, not even Lizine. Therefore, other than going to places with dense spiritual energy to cultivate, Lizine had always stayed in the small courtyard that the Sun Moon sect had specially built for her. Every year, Lizine's old illness would act up for 2 days. Shenjili had to use his psychokinesis to support her from time to time in these 2 days. For the sake of convenience, he emptied the miscellaneous hall next to the bedroom. When he was treating her old illness, he let her stay there. Once he had overcome his old illness, he immediately asked her to leave. As the final stage approached, Lizine still had no intention of going through the lightning tribulation. Her body was getting weaker by the day, and her old illness was acting up more frequently. In the end, it was almost once a month. Shenjili knew that he couldn't delay any longer. Since he had promised the Fox clan leader, he couldn't go back on his words. There were only 2 ways to help Lizine go through the lightning tribulation. The first was for her to rise to heaven ranked level 1. The second was for them to get engaged. To be Shenjili's wife, she had to go through the lightning tribulation. The lightning tribulation that the God Empress had to go through was the heaviest. And Shenjili didn't even think of marrying the God Empress now. Although he was heartbroken by Ning Xuema, he didn't think of marrying a God Empress to make things worse. But Lizine's lightning tribulation was imperative. Therefore he had an idea, and that was to get engaged. Chapter 1548. The lightning tribulation that Lizine had to go through during the engagement should be about the same as when she ascended to the heaven stage. The engagement was just a formality. After helping Lizine overcome the lightning tribulation, he could cancel the engagement at any time. Of course, he didn't want Lizine to misunderstand and have any thoughts about him. Therefore he told Lizine about the pros and cons in advance. He also made it clear that after helping her overcome the lightning tribulation, his promise would be fulfilled. He would send her back to the country of Jade Water and they would have nothing to do with each other in the future. Everything was explained very clearly, and Lizine also agreed very readily, agreeing to it without hesitation. This betrothal was actually a deal to fool the heavens. Shenjili did things according to his heart and didn't have any taboos. If Ning Xuema was by his side, he naturally wouldn't use the engagement to fool the heavens. However, he had already given up on Ning Xuema and returned to being a bachelor. An engagement ceremony that could be cancelled at any time was nothing to him. He thought that he didn't care about the engagement ceremony, but when the day came, Ning Xuema's figure kept flashing in front of him. His state of mind started to become unstable, and he had the urge to cancel the engagement ceremony. However, the date of the engagement ceremony was already the last day of Lizine's lightning tribulation, so he couldn't cancel it. However, he didn't expect Ning Xuema to suddenly appear at the engagement ceremony. When she asked him if he really wanted to marry Lizine, he couldn't say no in front of everyone. Otherwise, when the engagement ceremony was over, the lightning tribulation wouldn't arrive on time. Moreover, when he saw Ning Xuema, his state of mind was extremely unstable. There was a hint of joy in his anger and sadness in his joy. He thought that she was here for Shui Lan again. In the end, Ning Xuema smiled and gave him her blessings. She even danced for him and Luzine. Finally she smiled and left. From the beginning to the end, he didn't see her sad expression. She was smiling from the beginning to the end. At that moment, his heart, which had finally calmed down, was once again stirred up by her. Looking at her smile, he had the urge to tear her apart. At that moment, he sadly realized that he hadn't forgotten her at all. He simply couldn't let her go. After she left, Luzine wanted to continue the wedding with him. He was frustrated and wanted nothing more than to follow Ning Xuema and drag her back to ask her what she wanted to do and what she was thinking. At that moment, his mind was in turmoil. Luzine reminded him a few times, but he didn't hear anything. It wasn't until the clouds in the sky suddenly rolled and the tribulation clouds appeared that he finally came to his senses. Luzine had actually leveled up at this time. He heaved a sigh of relief. According to their previous agreement, he rose into the sky to block the lightning tribulation for Luzine. Logically speaking, this kind of lightning tribulation didn't mean much to him. However, because Ning Xuema had just come and severed ties with him in such a way, he was often distracted even when he blocked the lightning tribulation for Luzine. Probably only a venerable emperor would dare to be distracted while blocking the lightning tribulation. Of course, his injuries were also more serious than he had expected. After blocking the lightning tribulation, his promise to Luzine would be considered complete. Naturally, there was no need to complete the engagement banquet. Therefore, after he came down, he didn't care about anything at the engagement banquet and went into seclusion to recover. Before he went into seclusion, he also instructed Yelu Jing, and to send someone to take care of Luzine. After her injuries were healed, she could be sent back to Jade Water directly. There was no need to repay him. However, he didn't expect that something so irreversible would happen. When he looked back, he was already 100 years old. Everything couldn't go back. Chapter 1549. Shuma, our child is back. When will you come back? I will let you come back. Then come back to my side. Rong Yuetian looked at him with trepidation. Although he didn't know what Dizwa was thinking, he knew that the small stone he had picked up had a big effect. Most importantly, Dizwa's spirit seemed to have returned a little. Dizwa, he called out tentatively. Tianlan, prepare some things for me. Shinjuli said, naming a list of things in one breath. Being able to ask for things was a good thing. At the very least, he wouldn't seek death in the near future. Rong Yuetian agreed without hesitation. Shinjuli held the small stone as if it was the most important treasure in his life. His figure flashed and disappeared. Rong Yuetian also disappeared. The things Dizwa wanted weren't easy to find, so he had to make the best use of his time to get them. Only the disciples of the Sun Moon sect were left looking at each other in dismay. Their faces were pale and they didn't know what to do. Everything that had happened just now was like a nightmare to them. Ning Xuema disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. The ancestor seemed to have gone crazy. Almost everyone present could feel the bone-piercing sorrow coming from him. When a god grieves, all living things are hurt. At that time, the emotions coming from the ancestor infected everyone present, making them feel inexplicably flustered, trembling, and wanting to cry. That kind of god's sorrowful aura made it hard for everyone to breathe. Tears streamed down their faces and they couldn't lift their heads. The 8 great guardians, the 10 great elders, and the 13th senior brother all had deathly expressions. They didn't expect the ancestors' feelings for Ning Xuema to be so deep. They also didn't expect this outcome. Ning Xuema was injured by their hands. They had actually injured the ancestor's most important person. Even if the ancestor didn't punish them, they were already so regretful that they wanted to commit suicide. The 13th senior brother lowered his head and looked at his hands. He had shot out one of the 2 psychokinesis swords that pierced Ning Xuema's heart. His master had treated him with kindness as heavy as a mountain, but he had destroyed the person his master cared about the most. A short sword suddenly condensed in his palm, and he stabbed it towards his own heart. 13th Martial Uncle. One of the protectors reacted quickly and grabbed his hand that was holding the sword. I've let you down, master. 13th senior brother's face was filled with grief. 13th Martial Uncle, you can't be blamed for this. Martial Aunt Ning did it on purpose. After all, she killed a disciple of the Sun Moon sect. You weren't wrong to give such an order. Just as he said this, someone in the crowd suddenly exclaimed, "It's alive!" 13th senior brother and the others were startled and immediately looked in that direction. One of the disciples who had just been placed down and killed by Ning Xuema suddenly sat up. His face was full of confusion. I'm not dead? 13th senior brother's heart skipped a beat. He flew over and checked Sukei's body. Then he lowered his hands and the regret in his heart grew even stronger. That disciple's back had been stabbed by Ning Xuema, and a lot of frightening green blood had flowed out. Moreover, he had died on the spot. That was why people thought that he had been killed by Ning Xuema. However, after careful examination, they found that the wound wasn't deep. The poison wasn't a life-threatening poison, but a poison that could make people appear to be in a state of suspended animation. In other words, Ning Xuema didn't really want to take the lives of these hostages. It was just a means of coercion. Chapter 1550. In other words, Ning Xuema did not really want to take the lives of these hostages. It was just a means of coercion. Everyone immediately checked the injuries on the other 3 hostages. They were exactly the same as the first one. They believed that they would wake up soon. 13th senior brother took a step back and looked at the direction where Ning Xuema had disappeared. He had mixed feelings. He thought that his junior sister had really turned into a demon and could kill without batting an eyelid. He did not expect it was his fault. It was because he had taken things for granted that he didn't investigate the specific injuries of the murdered disciples that he made such a huge mistake. He suddenly raised his hand and cut off the tendons in his hand. He then raised his head with sweat all over his forehead and coldly instructed the disciples, "Our sect has made a mistake and caused irreparable losses. Now we are cutting off the tendons in your hands as punishment. When the ancestor returns, we will go to our master and apologize with our lives. Miss Ning is the most important person to the ancestor. Although she is dead, we have to clear her name. No one is allowed to disrespect her." The Sun Moon sect was the #1 sect in the world. When it wanted to clear someone's name, it was naturally very easy. Hence, a few days later when people mentioned Ning Xuema in the Tianxi continent, no one dared to slander her. The martial arts world was spread about her deeds of saving people. There were even some commoners who started to set up a memorial tablet for Ning Xuema and offer incense. These were all stories for later. After more than 20 years, Marquis Ning's residence still maintained its original look. The current owner of Marquis Ning's residence was Tom. He managed Marquis Ning's residence well. The pavilions and terraces were still the same. The only thing that changed was the people who used to live in Marquis Ning's residence. The servants had basically all changed. Uncle Zhong had also passed away. When Shen Jiuli arrived, he did not alarm anyone in the residence. He directly entered the house where Ning Xuema used to live. It was obvious that Tom was still very loyal to Ning Xuema. After so many years, there was not a single change in the furniture. Every item was wiped clean. Even the comb and mirror that she used in the past were still there. It was as if she was still living here and had never left. Shen Jiuli slowly sat on the gums, his fingers gently stroking the bedding. Although Ning Xuema hadn't lived here for long, this was her first stop in this world. Therefore, if she still had a remnant of her soul, perhaps there would be a trace of it here. Everything was still the same here. Shen Jiuli sat there, and it was as if he could see the woman he yearned for day and night was still here. He sat with his eyes lowered, and a familiar pain came from his heart. Xuema, no matter what, I will definitely bring you back. I don't believe that I won't be able to save you even if I use all my strength. He moved his finger and was about to use the soul-searching technique when a voice came from his sleeve. This is the place where my mother lived? I want to see it. The voice was extremely tender and childish, but the words spoken were very adult. Shen Jiuli didn't say anything. He took out a small blood-red stone from his sleeve and placed it on the table. The blood-red stone flashed and appeared to be semi-transparent. There was a small fetus swimming happily inside the stone. Shen Jiuli studied this stone for a long time, but he still couldn't figure out what it was. However, he could see that the spiritual power of this stone was very strong. Although it looked very small, the space inside was very big. His son's soul could happily roll around and grow in it. Chapter 1551. The space inside the red stone was a real mustard seed space. That day when he found his precious son hiding in here, he had always kept it close to him. When Rong Yuishenlin gathered all the things needed to revive the children, he took it out and used his divine power to draw its soul out. He didn't expect that the little guy would hug his divine power and play on a swing at first. When it realized that he wanted to take it out, it immediately let go of his divine power and swam into the depths. It was obvious that it didn't want to come out. Normally, little souls would be eager to be reborn. He didn't expect this little guy to be different. Shinjuli had to coax it and tell it that he wanted to revive it, but the little guy didn't buy it. It just hid there and didn't want to come out. Shinjuli was impatient and wanted to use force to force it out. He didn't expect that before he could do anything, it would cry like a baby. Its cry was heart-wrenching, and it could even call for its mother. Shinjuli had never dealt with such a small child in his life. He didn't know if other children were as naughty as this. When it cried for its mother, Shinjuli's heart softened. He couldn't bear to force it. Although the little guy wasn't immune to his divine power, it seemed to be very wary of him. Ever since it realized that he wanted to get it out of the red stone, it had been avoiding him. Rongyue Tianlan, who was watching from the side, wanted to laugh. She gave an idea to the ancestor. "These what children need to be coaxed. If you tell it about your identity, perhaps it will listen to you. After all, it is its biological son." Shinjuli paused. Then he told the red stone his identity. "I am your father. I won't harm you. I just want to save you." The red stone flickered for a long time. Finally, the little baby's confused voice was heard. "Husband? I am a baby boy." Shinjuli was speechless. Wasn't this child a little too precocious? It was still in its mother's womb. How could it know so much? What he didn't know was that when Ning Shuima was pregnant with it, she chatted with it almost every day. Gradually it learned a lot. Shinjuli explained to it, "I'm not your husband, I'm your father." He felt that this word was probably too difficult for such a small child to understand, so he changed it to something easier to understand, "I'm your father." The red stone paused for a moment and suddenly flicked. The child angrily replied, "I'm your father." Rong Yuetian, who was beside him, spurted out unkindly. When Shinjuli glanced at him, he immediately coughed and said, "This child is indeed the son of God. He is so precocious. Dizwa, take your time to communicate with it. The Shaoxian will go and prepare other things." Shinjuli naturally suppressed the urge to smash the stone against the wall. He slowly communicated with it and talked to it. After all, it was the nature of father and son. After some difficult communication, the child finally acknowledged him. Through the conversation with the child, Shinjuli also knew that there was another universe inside the red stone. It was simply a natural place to nurture a fetus. The child had only stayed here for a few days, but regardless of whether it was wisdom or soul, it had become much stronger. Shinjuli originally planned to cage the child in his body after he was resurrected and nourish it with his own flesh and blood. Now that the stone had this function, he didn't need to force the child. However, it wasn't appropriate for the child to be in a soul state. Therefore, he took out the small body he had made for the child and let the child's soul enter it by itself. Chapter 1552. Therefore he took out the little body that he had made for the child and let the child's soul enter it. Then he cast a spell to send the little body into the red stone. This stone was also strange. After the fetus entered, it automatically produced a liquid filled with spiritual energy, wrapping the fetus within. The little thing swam around inside as if it was in its mother's womb. It was very comfortable. Shinjuli only needed to drip a drop of God's blood on the stone every day. The little guy grew very fast in the stone, even faster than when it was in its mother's womb. When Shinjuli brought it back to life, it could not speak very well. It was a little confused. However, after more than 10 days, it was able to communicate with Shinjuli normally. Shinjuli realized that his child was a chatterbox. Whenever it was free, it would chat with him in the stone. It even complained that he was not as talkative as its mother. Shinjuli was initially annoyed by the noise and wanted to ask it to shut up for a while. However, when it mentioned its mother, it immediately made his heart ache. For the first time, he chatted with it for a while. Shinjuli wanted to look for Ning Shuema's soul everywhere. Naturally, he would bring it with him. The father and son were inseparable. The little guy was very curious. No matter where they went, it would come out to have a look. This time was no exception. It had already taken shape in the small stone. It looked like a standard fetus, but it matured much earlier than other children of the same age. Its limbs, head, and face were completely humanoid. At this moment, it swam over and looked at the scenery in the stone. It murmured, "It turns out that mother used to live here." It stretched out a small hand and put it on the stone wall. "I really want to touch this place." It blinked its eyes and said with a sad voice, "Nyenma misses mother." Shinjuli's heart ached. Since the child could talk to him and recognized him as its father, it often cried and said that it missed its mother. It missed its mother's voice and wanted her to talk to it. Later on, it probably knew that it was useless to think about it, so it did not often say this. However, it often repeated some of the words that Ning Xuema once said to it. It was about to cry when it was about to cry. When it was about to cry, it comforted itself. Mommy said that men bleed but don't cry. They can't cry casually. Once they cry, they will be cowards. Only girls can cry. I'm a baby boy, I won't cry. I want to be a real man after I'm born. After comforting itself like this, it was able to hold back its tears. Ning Xuema had taught her child well. He knew so much. Shenjuli was gratified, but his heart ached at the same time. If she was still alive, if she was by his side right now, how happy would their family of 3 be? Unfortunately, Lord Father, can you really find Mother and bring her back? The little guy looked at him from inside the stone. Yes. Shenjuli only replied with one word. He calmed himself down and began to perform the ritual. A moment later his arms slowly fell. This time it was the same as countless times before. He still could not find a trace of her soul. Every time he went to a place he would start with a weak hope, but he would be disappointed. These days he had been to countless places. They were all places that Ning Xuema had been to and stayed in. Every place was a place that she used to miss. Now, the scenery of those places was still there, but the person who held his arm and enjoyed the scenery was no longer there. Her shadow was in all these places, but he could not find a trace of her soul. Chapter 1553. She really didn't seem to have existed in this world. There were only 2 possibilities for this to happen. First, she really had nothing to live for in this world. So, she didn't want to leave any place that she liked. Second, she didn't die, she was reborn somewhere, and according to the situation at that time, the first possibility was the most likely. As for the second possibility, wherever a reborn person landed, there would be a strange phenomenon. It wasn't that he didn't have this kind of faint hope, so he had already given the Emperor order. Sun Moon sect, other sects, and even the entire Tianxi continent, as long as they heard of any strange phenomenon, they had to report to him and investigate. But no. He didn't hear any news about this. He even personally went to the demon realm to investigate, but there was nothing. As for the other continents, he had sent all the disciples who could pass through the space gate to different continents. Now there was no news back. Every news that came back was disappointment. Although Shenjuli was a god, he couldn't bear to be disappointed again and again. When people were at the end of their rope, they would seek immortality. When immortals were at the end of their rope, they would seek immortality. When a god was at the end of their rope, who would they seek? Father? Father? The small stone bounced into his palm and bounced there. And? Shenjuli looked down at it. The little fellow's ability was getting stronger and stronger. It could already control the stone to jump around. Is there still no mother here? The little fellow asked cautiously. And? The little fellow withered for a moment. It was also hit by this kind of disappointment that its little heart became stronger. Then, Father, can we rest here for a night? This is Mother's bed. I think the 3 of us can lie on this bed. Although the child was a god's child and was stronger than ordinary children, it was still a child. It wasn't even born yet. Even a newborn child longed for its mother's embrace, let alone a small fetus like it. Although this stone was good, it didn't have the warm and stable feeling of being in its mother's body. It longed for its mother's embrace, longed for its mother's breath, longed for its mother's voice. Unfortunately, it couldn't obtain these longings. Shenjuli's heart ached. Originally, he taught his child to be independent and not be influenced by emotions. But now, all right, he replied. She spread out the blanket that she used to cover herself with, loosened her outer robe, and laid on the outer side of the bed. She placed the small stone in the middle of the inner side. Little stone rolled around in the quilt. It was obvious that he was looking for his mother's scent. After rolling a few times, it stopped next to his arm and stopped moving. Obviously, it didn't smell Ning Xuema's scent in here. After all, this was the house she used to live in 20 years ago. Even if these blankets were from the past after so many years of drying, how could they possibly retain her scent? Little Shirtu was listless and didn't say anything. Shenjuli's heart ached unbearably. He paused for a moment, then took out a set of clothes from somewhere and placed it in the crook of his arm. This set of clothes had been worn by Ning Xuema before, and there was a little bit of her aura on it. He had always been reluctant to take it out, for fear that the aura would dissipate every time he took it out. But now, for the sake of the lost child, little Shirtu froze for a moment under the clothes and suddenly jumped up. Chapter 1554. Little stone froze for a moment under the clothes. Suddenly he jumped up and directly jumped into the clothes. He rolled around in the clothes. Mother. Mother. Mother's smell. It seemed to be crazy with joy. It manipulated the little stone to roll around every corner of the clothes and greedily sniffed the smell inside. After rolling around for a while, it suddenly cried out, "Mother, when will you come back? Nianma wants to hear her talk. I want to be hugged by her." Perhaps it had been suppressed for too long. This time it finally could not help but cry. Shinjuli did not speak. He only hugged the clothes and the little stone in his arms as if he was still hugging her and the child. He closed his eyes slightly. In the dark night where no one could see, tears slowly flowed from the corner of his eyes. "Shuama, where are you? How can I find you?" The little guy was tired from crying. Finally, it crawled into the abdomen of the clothes and curled up there to sleep. Occasionally he could hear it sobbing. Although the sound was soft, it was like a whip whipping his heart. His heart was very painful. It was like a drill slowly drilling there, making his whole heart convulse. He did not make a sound. He closed his eyes and slowly waited for the pain to subside. A few stars were shining outside. It was late at night and the little guy was already asleep. The color of the red stone had also dimmed. It seemed that it had fallen asleep with the little guy. Shinjuli sat up and looked at the stone for a long time. He knew that the stone was not from this world. From the little guy's long-winded talk, he knew that Ning Xuema once went back to her own time. She had many friends there. Of course, the little guy's mind was not fully developed. At that time, it was in its mother's stomach and could not see anything. Its perception of the outside world was basically based on listening. It listened to the people there and listened to its mother talking to it. Therefore, when it talked to Shinjuli, it was not coherent. Sometimes, it would even confuse Zhang San's story with Li Si's family. Every time it talked about its mother, Shinjuli would not interrupt it. Instead, he would encourage it and listen to it greedily. Then he slowly organized and connected the dots according to the known clues. Through guessing and guessing, he was able to get a pretty good grasp of the situation. He knew that Ning Xuema was lost in space and almost suffocated to death. He knew that she went back to her own time, but desperately wanted to come back. Shinjuli had recovered the memory of his previous life. He knew how much Ning Xuema wanted to go back to her time. She went back and desperately wanted to come back. Of course, it was because of him. Because she could not let him go and she could not bear to leave the child in her womb. This small stone was given to her by her friend. She had put it in her storage space at that time. After that, too many things had happened, so she had probably forgotten about the existence of this small stone. At that time, Nianma was trapped by Li Ziyin. His little body was killed. His soul panicked and ran around. He accidentally bumped into the little Gu Nianma, and the little Gu Nianma immediately wrapped him up. The miscarriage also hurt Nianma's soul. He slept in the little Gu Nianma's stone for a long time. If Shinjuli did not check on him, he would still be sleeping. After all, he was the son of God. He was naturally sensitive to the power of God. Chapter 1555. After all, it was the Son of God, so it was naturally sensitive to divine power. Therefore, after it stayed by Shinjuli's side, it recovered faster and faster and became more lively. Now the child was safe, but the child's mother was nowhere to be found. Shinjuli sat alone in the quiet night for a long time before he got out of bed. He picked up a pen and paper and started to draw. The person in his memory was very clear. He could draw her appearance even with his eyes closed. As he drew carefully, a woman gradually appeared in his drawing. Her lively eyebrows and slightly curved red lips were all in his memory. He stood in front of the table and drew one picture after another. Each picture was of her in a different form. Some were smiling, some were angry, some were shy, and some were proud. Every picture was of her, and every picture was vivid. It was as if the person in the picture was looking at him. His heart seemed to be hurting more and more. On the contrary, he liked this pain. Only with this pain could he feel that he was still alive. It was as if he was punishing himself. He couldn't draw a picture of sadness. No matter how much he drew, no matter how vivid his drawings were, they were just drawings after all. He couldn't touch her, hear her, or feel her. The paper on the window gradually became clear, and the sky gradually brightened. Another day passed and another morning came. Another day of hope, and finally despair. He was drawing to the end of another painting when there was suddenly some movement behind him. Pa! Little Shirtu jumped onto the table. It had probably just woken up and was still a little confused. It jumped on the edge of the table and swayed, almost falling down. Shinjuli caught it and put it on the table. Be careful. Little Shirtu swayed again and the little guy's gaze fell on the painting. Is this mommy? It's so beautiful. Your mommy is the most beautiful. Shinjuli replied. In this world, in his eyes, there was no woman more beautiful than her. The little guy was obviously happy. It jumped on the painting. This is the first time I've seen mommy. It stretched out its little hand and put it on the stone wall, as if it wanted to touch the hand of the person in the painting. This hand had gently touched it through its belly countless times, letting it feel the warmth of being protected. In the past, every time it used its little hands to touch its belly, it would get a response from its mother. It even heard its mother humming a strange song, something about a big-headed son and a small-headed father. Big hands holding small hands and walking to the end of the world. More than once she had used her hand to touch its little hand across her belly. She had even made a promise, baby, you're going to grow up and be born soon. Then, mommy will be able to hold your hand and walk. At that time I can take you to play a lot of things. Therefore at that time, Nyenma had an obsession to hold his mother's hand and walk with her. It must be a wonderful feeling. Now it finally saw its mommy. Mommy was as beautiful as it had imagined. But she refused to raise her hand to match fingers with it. Nyenma felt a little wronged. He tried to kick it with his little feet and nudge it with his little butt. The painting was just a painting and it would not give him any response. In the end it simply jumped onto the hand of the painting. Mommy hugged me. Shinjuli felt a suffocating pain in his heart. Some of the little guy's unconscious movements often made him have the urge to cry. He put down the brush and held the little Shirtu in his palm. He touched it with his finger across the stone wall. Father will be with you. In the future, Father will hold your hand and walk with you. He could not continue. Chapter 1556. Nyenma carefully touched his finger and asked, Father, will you leave me in the future? No. Shinjuli made a promise. I will watch you grow up. Nyenma pouted. Mommy said the same thing but she did not want me anymore. I miss her so much but she did not come back to see me. Your mommy loves you the most. Don't worry, as long as we work together she will come back. Well, let's look for her again. It was easy to coax a child. He was finally happy again. He jumped on the table again and looked at the stack of paintings. There are so many mommies. Can I have one to look at? While he was talking, he had already stretched out his little hand and tried to pull a painting across the stone wall. Perhaps he had practiced a new skill in the stone wall, or perhaps he was obsessed with it. The painting flew automatically as if it was pulled by an invisible hand and drilled into the stone wall. When Shinjuli wanted to stop it, only a corner of the painting was left. Little Nyenma cheered from the inside. It really came in. Oh, it melted. The paper was just ordinary paper and the painting was just an ordinary painting. Naturally it was not waterproof. However, there was amniotic fluid around little Nyenma. When the painting went in, of course, it became soft and wrinkled. The paint on the painting was also blurred. Wow, mommy is gone. Little Nyenma cried. Shinjuli was annoyed. He quickly cast a cleaning spell to melt the paint inside so that the liquid inside would not be contaminated and make the little guy sick. After everything was done, he added a small waterproof wizardry barrier on one of the paintings. Then he used a spell to send the painting in. Finally, the little guy was happy again. Shinjuli suddenly seemed to notice something. He waved his sleeve and put the small stone on the table into his sleeve. There was a sound of footsteps outside the door. The person paused at the door. Shuama? Are you back? The voice was young and magnetic. It was a little retroflex and the tone was a little strange. Shinjuli was slightly surprised. It was Tom, the chastity-testing beast. He coughed lightly and said coldly, Come in. Tom was startled. His hearing was amazing, so he still had a deep impression of the ancestor's voice. After being stunned for a moment, he immediately pushed the door open and entered. Greetings, ancestor. Shinjuli waved his hand and asked him to get up. His fingers moved slightly, and a wisp of aura quietly circled around Tom. Then he lowered his eyes. Tom didn't have the aura of Ning Shuama's soul. Tom was still a little uneasy when he saw the number one person on the continent. Ever since he became a human, he had also grown up. However, the speed of his growth was a little slower than that of a normal human. She looked like she was about 16 or 17 years old. Shinjuli didn't usually talk to people casually, but now he talked to Tom for a while. He knew that Tom and Ning Shuama were from the same era. He wanted to know more about that era and their transmigration experience. He now suspected that Ning Shuama had returned to her own era after the calamity. However, when Tom passed through the Treem people, he fell unconscious and woke up as a beast. Although he was familiar with the things of that era, he didn't know how to go back. Shinjuli didn't get any valuable clues from him, so he turned around and left. "Father, where are we going to find Mommy?" A voice came from his sleeve. Nianma was very curious. These days, his father had taken him to many places. The ice field, Mount Yuehua, Changkong Kingdom. Chapter 1557. Both father and son had left their footprints in every place, and little Nianma gained a lot of knowledge. Every time they went to a place, his father would go in a hurry and then return slowly. Little Nianma was still very sensitive. He could clearly feel Shinjuli's emotions, from hope to disappointment and then to despair. Every time they went to a new place, his father's emotions would go through the same cycle, which made little Nianma feel a sense of unbearable weight. "Father, we will look for Mommy slowly. There is no rush. Don't be sad." The little guy was very considerate when necessary. "Okay." Shinjuli only responded with one word. He also felt that his emotions were probably affecting the child too much, so he took a breath and said, "Let's go to the Kirin clan." Little Apple brought Hong Ti to the Sun Moon clan to seek refuge with him. At that time, he had just recovered the memory of Shui Yemo and recognized that Little Apple was Long Chuan's relative. Moreover, at that time he was preparing to expel the devil in Ning Shuema's body. He did not want Little Apple to disturb him, so he simply sent it back to the Kirin clan. As for Hong Ti, it was a devil phoenix. Although it did not do much evil, there was evil in its body. It could easily strengthen the power of the devil in Ning Shuema's body if it stayed with her. Therefore, Shinjuli sent the little phoenix to a forbidden place with purifying power to practice. It would take at least 20 years to purify it successfully. The location of the Kirin clan was very secretive. Only a few people in the entire Tianxi continent knew about it. Shinjuli was one of them. One of his apprentices was born here. More than 3,000 years ago he was injured and woke up here. They had not seen each other for 10 years and Little Apple had grown a lot. Initially it was discriminated against in the Kirin clan. When Shinjuli sent it back, it was specially taken care of, so its kind did not discriminate against it. Moreover, Little Apple had learned a lot from Ning Shuema and Shinjuli over the years. It was no longer an ignorant person. After returning to the Kirin clan, Little Apple also made up its mind that it should practice hard so that it could face its master in the future. Therefore, it had been practicing in isolation for the past 10 years. When it heard the news of the Dizun's arrival, it immediately rushed over. It was already able to transform into a human form. Now it looked like a 13 or 14-year-old boy. "Dizun, where is my master?" This was the first thing he said when he saw Shinjuli. Back then, it and Ning Shuema depended on each other for survival. In its heart, Ning Shuema was no longer just a master with whom it had established a blood contract, but a friend who had gone through life and death together. In these 10 years, it missed her very much. However, it could not enter and leave the Qilin clan as it pleased, so it could only endure it. The Qilin clan was isolated from the rest of the world and was not on the Heavenly Bestowal continent. Therefore, the events that happened on the Heavenly Bestowal continent did not reach the Qilin clan. Little Apple didn't know that Ning Shuema had gone through a tribulation and her soul had been destroyed. When it saw Shinjuli, the first thing it thought of was Ning Shuema. Naturally, it asked the question it was most concerned about. Shinjuli did not speak. He extended his divine sense and circled around Little Apple. His fingers slowly lowered. It could be said that Little Apple was Ning Shuema's most important thing when she was alive. Now there was no trace of Ning Shuema's soul by its side. So where should he go to find it? "Dizun? Is my master still cultivating?" Little Qilin had a bad feeling in its heart, so it tried to ask in the best direction. Shinjuli did not speak. Kirin continued. Chapter 1558. Shinjuli did not say anything, so Kirin continued, "Dizun, I don't think we should let her stay in one place to practice. She is so outgoing, and it will be very uncomfortable for her to stay in one place all the time. In fact, I am also practicing. Why don't you bring me back? I can practice with her and relieve her boredom." Shinjuli clenched his fists in his sleeves. If only he knew where she was practicing. Since he could not find her here, Shinjuli did not want to waste any more time. He turned and left. Kirin knew that the Dizun had always been indifferent and did not like to talk. However, since he came and specifically looked for it, there must be something he wanted to talk to it about. Why did he leave without saying a word after taking a glance at it? Kirin had always been with Ning Xuema, so it had always been brave. Once it was anxious, it would even dare to talk back to the only god in the world. It had been worried about Ning Xuema for 10 years. Now that there was finally someone who knew about it, how could it allow him to leave so easily? In a flash, it appeared in front of Xinjiuli and said, "Dizun, please say something." "Hey, father, is this mother's guardian beast?" Before Xinjiuli could say anything, a sharp horn of a red stone emerged from his sleeve. Kirin opened its mouth wide as if it was struck by lightning. Father? Mother? Stone? Its master was married to the great god? She gave birth? And she gave birth to a stone. These three nouns were simply three thunderbolts, shocking the little Qilin so much so that it couldn't come back to its senses for a while. "I want to see it." The red stone jumped out of Xinjiuli's sleeve and directly jumped on Kirin's head. Kirin was speechless. It was stunned. Xinjiuli still did not say anything. He still spoiled his son very much. Since Nianma wanted to see the Kirin, he would let him have a good look. Thus, with a wave of his sleeve, little Apple's body shook, and it immediately returned to its original form, a majestic green Qilin beast. Little Stone bounced and rolled around on its body. "Your scales are so slippery. The colors are beautiful too." Dizun. "It is? It's my master's?" The little Qilin stood there stiffly and couldn't speak clearly. Master was clearly a human, so how could he give birth to a stone? Could it be that the ancestor's original body was a stone? It was really possible. The ancestor was so cold and stubborn that he was really like a rock. Kirin's mind was instantly distracted. The little rock was still bouncing around on its body, but it didn't dare to move. It was afraid that the little rock would fall to the ground and cause problems. After little Shirtu had enough of jumping on its body, he flashed again and jumped between its eyes. Kirin hurriedly raised its head and focused its eyes in the middle. It almost became cross-eyed. "Darling, slow down a bit. Is your mother really Xuema?" "Yes." Little Stone then leaned on Kirin's face and looked at its eyes. "Your eyes are so big." As it got closer, Kirin finally saw that there was something else in the little rock. There was a little baby lying there and staring at it. A stone fetus? Sun Wukong? When Kirin was with Ning Xuema, it heard her talk about the journey to the west, so it knew that Sun Wukong jumped out of a stone. At that time it only heard about it. It didn't expect to finally see a living one. There was actually a little baby in the stone. The little baby's facial features were very beautiful, and it looked very pink. This was its master's child. Chapter 1559. Although Kirin was puzzled, it was still very excited. It raised one of its claws and carefully removed the stone from its face. "Let me see you. How did you get into the stone? Where is your mother?" "Mother has disappeared. My father and I are looking for her, but we can't find her. We can't find her." Shin Yinma felt wronged. He blinked his eyes and was about to cry. This little guy's every frown and smile was extremely infectious. When it pursed its lips, the little Qilin also felt sour in its heart. At the same time, it also felt that something was wrong. "What do you mean by disappeared? She disappeared again? Was she taken away by Shui Yilan again? She disappeared for 10 years because of this." After all, Shin Yinma was still a baby. There were some things that he could not understand. He did not know why his mother disappeared and how she disappeared. Therefore he only wanted to cry. "I don't know. Mommy doesn't want me anymore. She doesn't want my father anymore. We have been looking for her." There was nothing in the world that Xinjiuli could not find. After all, she had a child. She loved children so much. How could she leave the child and disappear for no reason? Kirin suddenly raised its head and looked at Xinjiuli, who had been standing next to it silently. "Great Master, what is going on?" "My master?" Xinjiuli was slightly stunned. He had not heard the title, Great Master, for a long time. Now he heard it from Kirin. He felt a stab of pain in his heart, but his tone was calm. "Nianma, come here. Let's go back and look for your mother in other places." "Okay." The little stone was about to jump out of Kirin's hand. Kirin quickly held it tightly, mainly because it was afraid that it would fall to the ground. "How are you going to find your mother?" "Father said that we will look for her soul. Once we find her complete soul, she will be able to come back." Shin Yinma told it what he knew. Kirin's body suddenly shook and its eyes widened. "Her soul is gone." It suddenly raised its head and looked at Xinjiuli. "Dizun, her soul is gone?" "Yes." This time Xinjiuli finally replied with a word. Kirin felt as if he had been struck by a thunderbolt. After a long while he said, "Why? Did his soul scatter?" Who hurt her? Me. Shinjuli's answer was always so concise and comprehensive. Kirin was instantly enraged. Blood rushed to his head. Why? Did she do anything wrong to you? I'm the one who let her down. Kirin's eyes reddened. She likes you so much. What right do you have to hurt her? In a fit of anger he slapped out with his claws. A beam of blue light struck Shinjuli's chest. Shinjuli didn't dodge and let the blue light hit him. Kirin's martial arts had already reached a very high level. At the very least he had reached Earth rank level 7. This time, it furiously struck out with its claws, which contained almost all of its power. Even if it hit a metal plate, it would still be able to create a large hole. However, after it hit the D-Zune, his body did not move at all. It was as if he was not the one who was hit. He did not speak anymore. He just raised his sleeve, and the small stone in Kirin's hand automatically flew into his hand. Nyenma, let's go. He turned and left. Kirin was speechless. It angrily turned around 3 times in the same place. No, it wanted to go out. It also wanted to find its master's soul. Of course, it also wanted to know the truth. It was its master's family. It could not let her die without knowing the reason. Chapter 1560. Father, you are bleeding. Little Nyenma jumped in Shinjuli's palm and tried to see him clearly. Shinjuli's lips were indeed bleeding, but he used a cleaning spell to remove the blood. However, his face looked paler. Why did the Kirin hurt you? Little Nyenma was angry. Just now, it wanted to bite the little Qilin in the stone, but before it could do anything, it was brought back by its father. It should have done something. Shinjuli only said 5 words. Kirin was Ning Shuema's family. If her family wanted to beat him, he had no reason to fight back or avoid it. He did not even use his telekinesis to defend himself and took the hit. Although it was painful, what he needed now was a kind of pain. It was as if she would be able to come back after the pain was over. There was a surge of blood in his chest, but he forced himself not to show it on the surface. Little Nyenma tried his best to look at him in the stone. After a while, he suddenly cried, Father, I don't want anything to happen to you. Mommy is gone and she doesn't want me anymore. Father, you can't lose your soul too. You can't lose me too. I don't want to be an orphan. Mother always said that orphans are very pitiful. He cried so loudly that it almost broke his skin. He was extremely smart. Obviously, he could see that his father was almost hurting himself. He did not seem to want to live anymore. The child's cries were heart-wrenching. If it could come out, it would probably cry by grabbing his collar. Shinjuli was shocked. He was indeed a little desperate now, and he was indeed tired of the world. That person was gone, and half of his life seemed to have been taken away. Every day and every night was a torture. Every moment was a heart-wrenching experience. But now he still had Nyenma. Nyenma had already lost his mother. He could not lose his father too. Shinjuli raised his hand and patted Little Stone. No matter how upset he was, he did not want to affect the child. He smiled and said, Don't cry, Nyenma. Father is a god and his soul will not disappear. Father will not abandon you. He will always be by your side. Nyenma is a man. A man will bleed but not cry. Crying is the behavior of a bear. Stop crying. If you continue crying, you will drown the baby around you. Little Nyenma stopped crying and corrected his mother. Mother said that this is called amniotic fluid, not fetal fluid. And your mother is right. Alright, don't cry. He held the stone and shook it gently. The little fellow felt as if it was in a cradle and finally fell asleep. Shinjuli was afraid that he would hurt his vital chi by crying, so he dripped another drop of divine blood into his body. Looking at his face, the little baby's facial features were exquisite. The corners of his lips and nose were a bit like his mother's, and his eyes were like his own. This temper, Shinjuli could not figure out who Nyenma took after. It was definitely not like him. Although he did not remember how he looked like when he was a child, he should have such a cold temper. He was the kind that did not care about anything. Unlike this little guy who cried and laughed at times. He was also very talkative and lively. His tears and laughter could affect people's moods, making people want to treat him well. In this aspect he should be like his mother. His mother was probably like this when she was a child. When she laughed, it was as if the sky was clear and the moon was bright. It made people want to hug her. When she cried, it made people feel gloomy, making them want to hug her even more. Chapter 1561. His gaze fell on the sword hanging at his waist. The workmanship was exquisite, and the materials were exquisite. It was not some divine weapon. It was just that the materials were a bit special, and it was quite good for ordinary self-defense. The moonlight sword was a gift from Ning Xuema. He remembered that when she gave it to him, he proudly hung it on his waist and walked around the Sun-Moon sect, wishing that the entire Sun-Moon sect knew about it. Later on he lost his memories of Ning Xuema, and this sword was always left in his storage space, gathering dust. Only when he recovered his memories did he remember this sword, and hang it on his waist again. His fingers caressed the sword inch by inch, as if he could still feel her aura and her temperature. As if he could still see her proud appearance when she gave this sword to him. This was the material she obtained after fighting the Moonlight Winged Dragon for close to a month, and it was her blood, sweat, and tears. The sword was still there, and the person who gave it to him, the familiar pain in his heart came again. He lowered his eyes slightly, standing in place for a while. He had already walked around the Heavenly Bestowal continent, so he should probably go to the Immortal Nation to take a look. After all, many things had happened between them there. Perhaps he could find a part of her soul there. He turned around and headed towards the Immortal Nation. The outside world was already turned upside down, but it was as if time had stopped in the Immortal Nation and everything was still the same. Shinjuli walked slowly on the streets and even walked around the shops from time to time. He hid his true appearance, so he was no different from the citizens of the Immortal Nation, so no one noticed him when he walked around. These were the places he had visited when he was with Ning Xuema, or when Ning Xuema had just crossed over. Now that he was revisiting these old places, he felt a sense of loneliness. Things remain the same, but people have changed and tears flow before speaking. These were the words Ning Xuema had once recited in front of him when she was still alive. At that time, she was hugging his neck in his embrace, and reciting these words was just a forced expression of worry for the sake of creating new words. Who would have thought that it would become a motto? He strolled around the Immortal Nation. From time to time she would buy a few things. These were things that she had bought in the past and she liked them very much. Now that he had bought it, there was no one else to give it to, so he could only put it in his storage space. He even bought another steamed bun. The steamed bun was like a lantern when held up and like a chrysanthemum flower when put down. Every fold of the steamed bun was filled with an artistic aura. He remembered that when he brought her here for the first time, the first thing she bought was this, and she ate it with great relish. He slowly ate the bun. The steamed buns were actually very delicious, but when he ate them he felt that his mouth was bitter and his throat was dry. Shin Yinma had also woken up. He peeked out from his father's sleeve and stared at the half-eaten bun in his father's hand. He asked curiously, "Father, is this delicious?" "Yinma wants some too." Shinjuli flicked the stone shell with his finger. "You can't eat it now. You can eat it when you're born and have teeth." Shin Yinma pursed his lips and reached out to touch his head. "Father, when will I be born?" Shinjuli paused for a moment. It's often said that after 10 months of pregnancy, the melon falls when it's ripe. You are 6 months pregnant now, so there should be another 4 months. Shin Yinma turned over and splashed water with his little feet. "So long?" Shinjuli stuffed him back into his sleeve. "Grow up well in there. Grow up quickly." Chapter 1562. After Shin Yinma's torment, the pain in Shinjuli's heart seemed to have lessened a little. He had used the soul-searching spell to search every place he passed by, but he still could not find a trace of Ning Xuema's soul. Therefore, the possibility of her being there was almost zero. It began to rain without them noticing. The wind carried the drizzle with it, and it brought a touch of coolness to the front of their clothes. The people around them held up their umbrellas, and the streets were full of colorful umbrella flowers. It was very beautiful. A couple who were holding hands ran past Shinjuli. They shared the same umbrella and laughed as they ran past Shinjuli. When they passed by Shinjuli, the woman could not help but look at him. The couple's conversation could be heard in the wind. "Hey, why is that person not holding an umbrella? His hair is wet." "Baby, you should be concerned about your husband. My hair is a little wet too. You can have the umbrella." "No way. I will be sad if you get wet. Let it rain on me." "Will the lock we just fastened be damaged by the rain?" "Don't worry, it won't. The bronze lock is not afraid of the rain. We want to be together for a long time, so the lock will naturally stay together for a long time." The two of them ran away as they spoke. Shinjuli's heart ached. He strolled and walked towards the Lover's Bridge. The Lover's Bridge was full of dense locks. Each lock was a hope, a hope. Shinjuli's fingers gently stroked the locks, and his eyes were in a trance. He seemed to see the girl in red coming with a sky-blue umbrella. Great God, should we also put a lock here? This is very interesting. A lock can lock a relationship? What a joke. Just tie it, just tie it. It is just a good luck. Do you not want to be with me for a long time? Alright, as you wish. Then what lock should we tie? Bronze lock? Iron lock? Hey, where did you find a jade lock? Iron and copper can produce embroidery, but this item will not produce embroidery. Aya, although the jade lock looks good and won't rust, it's afraid of falling. If it bumps and bumps, it might break. Don't be afraid. With the support of telekinesis, I'm not afraid of falling. And you're so thoughtful. Then we'll tie it up and wait for me to carve some words. Some distant memories, the longer they worked, the clearer they became. The clearer they were, the more heart-wrenching they were. The things that were once careless were now indescribably blissful. Only when they truly lost it did they realize that it was a wound that could never be healed. Just thinking about it was painful to the bone marrow. There was an umbrella in his hand, and it was exactly the same as the one she had used back then. Standing on this bridge again, she felt as if a lifetime had passed. Shinjuli didn't know how long he had been standing on the bridge. It was so long that his sleeves were wet and his cheeks were cold. He remembered the fate of the jade lock. She had taken it off and destroyed it before throwing it into the water. He opened his palm and the broken jade lock lay there quietly. There was a deep line between the names Shinjuli and Ning Shuema engraved on it. It was as if there was an insurmountable gap between the two names. It was just like the distance between him and her. He looked at it for a moment and kept the jade lock away. Then he condensed a bronze lock and used a carving knife to carve a few words on it. Shinjoli, Ning Shuema, Shinyenma. The three names were connected by a heart shape as if they were a family. He solemnly tied the bronze lock to the bridge and cast a few spells on it. This way no one would be able to destroy it if it was tied here. This lock would be locked until the end of time. Chapter 1563. Shuma and Nyenma and I have been waiting for you to come back. Where are you? He held the railing of the bridge and fell into deep thought. These days he had been to all the places that he could. He even went to places that were impossible. He could not find any trace of her soul. This situation was very unusual. Even if she was disheartened before her death, her soul should still be there after being struck by the thunder. With his method of searching, it was impossible that he could not find any trace of her soul. Moreover, she was struck on Mount Buddha Lotus of the Sun Moon clan. That place originally had the effect of gathering souls. If an ordinary disciple was struck and had their souls scattered, those scattered souls wouldn't even be able to escape Buddha Lotus Mountain. They would be scattered all over Buddha Lotus Mountain like gossamers, but they wouldn't know about it. If he wanted to collect them, he could at least collect 2 souls and 3 spirits. Ning Shuema was a level 9 earth rank before she died. She had not yet become a celestial being. Even if her soul was strong, it was impossible for all the scattered souls to escape without leaving a trace. This was not very reasonable. Even if she was the soul of a 9-tailed fox in her previous life, it was impossible for her to reach this level. He had already done a spell on Mount Buddha Lotus. Indeed, there was not a trace of her. Even her aura had disappeared. It was as if this person had never appeared in this world. It was as if there was a hand in the dark that erased all traces of her life in this world. He recalled the golden-purple lightning during her tribulation. If it was an ordinary person ascending from Earth rank 9 to Heaven rank 1st rank, the tribulation lightning would be silver lightning. If they were originally from the celestial race or the ordinary devil race, the thunder would be purple. For example, Lazine was from the celestial fox race, so the thunder would be purple. When a high-level celestial or devil was to ascend, the thunder would be golden. However, when Ning Shuema was going through the thunder, it was purple. Even if she were to ascend to level 1, it should not be this color. What was going on at that time? Could it be that she actually had another identity? Did she successfully ascend to her original state? But whether it was the immortals or devils in this world, he knew most of them. If there was an extremely high-level immortal or devil that succeeded in transcending the tribulation, the entire continent would be shrouded in auspicious clouds or devil clouds. It would be impossible for there to be no movement at all like now. He recalled her earliest origins. She seemed to have come from the other side of the black hole. Could it be that she had returned to her original world after the tribulation? With this in mind, Shinjuli gripped the railing of the bridge tightly. Had he already gone to another world? Shuema, since you can travel to this spacetime, then I can also travel to your spacetime. Since you refuse to come back, then it's my turn to look for you. Lord Father, where are we going to look? Little Shirtu poked his head out. Nianma, do you miss your mother? Yes. Shin Nianma answered loudly without hesitation. Good. Then just call out to her in your heart from time to time and tell her that we're going to look for her. Nianma is calling her. Will she hear him? Yes. Mommy, I miss you so much. Mommy, I miss you so much. Shin Nianma immediately cried loudly. His voice was so loud that Shinjuli's eardrums were buzzing. Shinjuli was speechless. He patted little Shirtu and said, You don't have to cry out. Just think about it in your heart. If Ning Xuema had returned to her original state, then she must be a high-level celestial or devil. She and Shin Nianma were connected. If Shin Nianma always thought about her in his heart, it would create a magnetic field effect. Chapter 1564. As long as she was still alive, she should be able to receive it. It would form a reflection in her heart and be connected to Shin Nianma's magnetic field. As long as he could find a common magnetic field, he could follow that magnetic field to find her. In fact, he was taking advantage of his son, but he really could not care less. In the vast planet and the vast starry sky, there were countless space portals. Shinjuli shuttled through various space portals, looking for the black hole that would only appear once in a few thousand years. However, his luck was obviously not good. He had been shuttling through these spaces for 2 months, but he still could not find it. Shin Nianma did not know how many times he had called for his mother in his heart, but he did not receive any response. This was also a big blow to him. Every day he was listless in the small stone and could not lift his spirits. Father, does mommy really not want Nianma anymore? Father, is Nianma not obedient? Why doesn't mommy want me anymore? Father? Shin Nianma would always ask the same question a few times every day. Shinjuli finally felt that it was not a way to go on like this. He could not leave a shadow on his child. Perhaps the way he found was wrong. Nianma, your mommy loves you the most. She will not abandon you. She is just too far away from us now, so she can't hear you. Let's look for her again. As long as we are close to her, she will be able to hear you and respond to you. Even if she doesn't want your father, she will not abandon you. After hearing this, Shin Nianma finally perked up and nodded heavily. Well, mommy will definitely want me. Perhaps my ability is not good enough. When my ability is better, I will be able to sense mommy. As he spoke, he pulled out a book from nowhere and began to read. The book was written by Shinjuli himself. Of course, the book was also waterproof, so Shin Nianma could practice in it without any delay. It was strange that he was now 8 months old, but his body size was not much bigger than before. However, he was getting smarter and could often draw inferences from one case. In the process of looking for his wife, Shinjuli did not neglect his son's education. He was originally an expert in teaching apprentices. Now he was even more dedicated to teaching his son. He even specially designed a set of cultivation methods for his son. Of course, because he didn't have any experience in taking care of children, he had even bought books on how to educate children. Therefore, although little Nianma followed Shinjuli everywhere, he did not delay much. He was not even out of his mother's womb yet, but he had already learned a lot of martial arts. Father, what do the 3 flowers of crowning mean? What this means is... Shinjuli was explaining to him when suddenly, the ground beneath his feet sank, and a strong force pulled him down. He staggered and almost fell. He quickly steadied himself in the air. At this moment he was still in the starry sky. After passing through so many spatial doors, this was the first time he had encountered a situation where he was being sucked in. He looked down and saw a milky white vortex spinning below him. His heart suddenly jolted. Perhaps there was some mystery behind this. Almost without hesitation, he stuffed Shin Nianma into his sleeve and jumped into the white whirlpool. Poof! He popped his head out from the bottom of the sea. When he got ashore, he found that it was a dead end. The whistling cold wind was bone-chilling, and the big stones on the ground were rolling. In this place, apart from the deep blue sea, there were rocks everywhere. There was no trace of green or human life. Chapter 1565. Shinjuli stood on the shore for a moment and felt a chill in his heart. This place was not a place where living creatures could survive. Even if Ning Xuema succeeded in her ordeal, it was impossible for her to come here. However, since he was here, he would not give up until he took a look around. Thus he slowly walked forward. Desolate, lonely, cold. This was the only impression that this place gave people. There seemed to be a sad aura floating with the wind, which made people feel depressed for no reason. Shinjuli was stunned. This aura, it was vaguely familiar. Since it was a barren place with no people, how could someone have such emotions? He shook his sleeve and little stone popped his head out. Shin Yinma's eyes were full of excitement. Mother's aura. Mother's aura. Shinjuli's mind was blown. He finally sensed it. This aura belonged to Shui Yimo. Moreover, this aura was very ancient and did not seem to have been left behind recently. He suddenly recalled that in Ning Shuema's consciousness, he had heard her say that in his previous life Shui Yimo, in order to revive him, banished herself to a barren land and made a coffin to commit suicide. His heart trembled. Was this place that barren place? He quickly walked forward following the aura. After a while he paused slightly because he sensed another person's aura. After a while he came to the bottom of a cliff. He looked up and squinted his eyes slightly. In the middle of the straight cliff, there was a small platform. On the platform there was a blood-red coffin. Next to the coffin sat a person. His red robe was fluttering in the wind. Shuilan. He did not expect to meet him here. There had been no news about him in the past few months. He did not expect him to come here. Shuilan looked very decadent. He sat next to the coffin and stared at it as if he wanted to see it until the end of time. Shinjuli's eyes also fell on the coffin, and his eyes narrowed slightly. Although he didn't know the usage and effects of some of the forbidden techniques of the demon realm, this coffin was obviously strange. The bright red color seemed to be dyed with blood, revealing an extremely ominous aura. This coffin. Shinjuli's heart felt like it was being squeezed by someone. He flew up and landed directly on the platform. Shuilan, who was lost in thought, probably heard the commotion. He raised his head and looked at Shinjuli, who was flying over. "What are you doing here?" Shinjuli ignored him. He floated in the air and carefully examined the coffin. The coffin lid had disappeared, and there was no corpse inside. There was only the coffin body lying there, as if it was a reminder of its existence. "Hee, Shinjuli, you always thought that Momo owed you in her previous life, but she no longer owes you anything." "I don't owe you anything. In her previous life, she used such a tragic method to commit suicide in this coffin. She used the fate of being an eternal cursed star in exchange for your rebirth." Shuilan looked like he was crying and laughing at the same time. Shinjuli's face was pale. His eyes scanned the coffin again and again as if he was looking for something. After a while he asked, "Her corpse?" "It was burned. At that time, Momo and I accidentally broke into this place and saw this coffin. Only after the original owner read the memories of her previous life and burned the corpse and the coffin could her fate as a heavenly calamity star be unraveled. Therefore Momo burned the corpse and the coffin. However, I don't know why this coffin reappeared." Shuilan pressed his palm on the coffin. When he raised his hand again, there was blood on his palm. Chapter 1566. Shuilan pressed his palm on the coffin. When he lifted his hand, there was blood on his palm. "This coffin is actually bleeding. Hee, it's bleeding. Is this Momo's blood? Could it be?" Shinjuli's fingers were cold. 5 words suddenly appeared in his mind: blood curse soul return technique. This was very similar to the legendary demon realm's secret technique, blood curse soul return technique. Although Shinjuli had recovered his memories, he had only recovered the memories of 2 lives. One was Shui Yimo's and the other was Ning Shuema's. Before he met Shui Yimo and before he met Ning Shuema, his memories of 3 lives were still blank. Although he didn't remember things from a long time ago, he faintly felt that he had lived for at least 10,000 years. But when he met Shui Yimo, it was only 3,000 years ago. There were at least 7,000 years before that. In his memories of these 2 lives, there was no concept of blood curse soul return technique. But now this term had suddenly appeared. Even he himself didn't know where this concept came from, as if it came from a distant memory. As far as he knew, this blood curse soul return technique was the highest and most tragic technique in the demon realm. The caster had to use all the blood in his body as a catalyst to condense a blood coffin. Then, at the cost of his soul being reincarnated as a heavenly calamity star in exchange for another person's rebirth. This was originally a method used by the higher-ups of the demon realm to trick the lower-ups into working for them. For example, if the higher-ups died for some reason, they could trick their loyal subordinates into using this technique. At the cost of their own life, the higher-ups would be reborn. This technique also had a legendary characteristic. In order to remove this technique, the reincarnated person had to return to this place and burn the blood coffin and the corpse. Only then could they break the fate of being a heavenly calamity star, achieve perfection, and obtain the greatest happiness. Because of this legendary characteristic, the subordinates of the demon realm once used this curse technique as a means to show their loyalty to their superiors. Some low-level demons used this curse technique without hesitation for the sake of the illusory great perfection in the future, just for the sake of their final happiness. Later on, some demons probably noticed the loophole of this technique. It didn't seem to be as godly as the legend said, and gradually stopped being fooled. As a result, this spell was lost in the later period. When Shinjuli had Shui Yimo's memories, even Shinjuli didn't know that there was such a curse technique in this world. Naturally, he didn't think that Shui Yimo had paid such a huge price for his resurrection. When he woke up, it was already 10 years later. Long Chuan used his own soul and body as a guide to repair his heart, allowing him to revive. When he woke up, Long Chuan was dead and more than half of the celestial realm had withered. The devil realm was also in chaos. Some people said that the devil realm's devil lord, his daughter, and the devil lady's servant, Shui Yilan, had all disappeared. Some said that they died due to internal strife, while others said that the three of them went into seclusion to research peerless techniques and could come back at any time. In short, there were all kinds of rumors. At that time, Shinjuli was heartbroken and didn't want to hear any more news about Shui Yimo. Naturally, he didn't feel like investigating her whereabouts in the future. After giving the oracle, he fell into a deep sleep. When he woke up, he had Wu Yimo by his side. He also forgot everything about Shui Yimo as he wished. Naturally, he didn't inquire about who she was in the end, until he recovered all kinds of information about Shui Yimo in this life, and heard some fragments of her previous life in Ningxuema Sea of Consciousness. Chapter 1567. It was not until he recovered all the information about Shui Yimo in this life and heard some of Ning Shuema's narration of her past life that he finally knew that Shui Yimo had done so much for him in that life. Now that he saw the blood coffin and saw the runes on it, the specific characteristics of this spell emerged in his mind. There was another characteristic of the spell that even the caster did not know about. In order to completely remove the spell, not only did the reincarnated person need to burn the corpse, but the person who was saved also needed to burn the blood coffin. Otherwise, the blood coffin would appear again and again, and the fate of being a loner would not change. He closed his eyes slightly and rubbed his fingers on the blood coffin for a moment. There was a fire on his fingertips, and the blood coffin was instantly set ablaze. The fire soared into the sky, and the air was filled with a faint smell of blood. Mother! Shin Yinma jumped out from Shin Juli's sleeve and was about to jump into the coffin. He could not bear to let go of his mother's smell. Shin Juli held it tightly. Nyenma, your mother is not here. All that was left behind was her resentment and the power of the curse. But there is mother's smell here. Shin Nyenma looked at the coffin eagerly as if he wanted the coffin to hug him. Shui Yilan looked at the jumping red stone, with his eyes wide open. His eyesight was very good, so he naturally saw the little guy in the red stone. He looked as if he was struck by lightning. It is Momo's child? Shin Juli did not answer him. He only put Shin Yinma back into his sleeve. The resentment of the spell was too strong, and Shin Yinma was, after all, a little baby. He was afraid that it would offend him. The coffin was burning there, and there seemed to be endless bitterness and resentment coming from the coffin. It made people have the urge to cry. Shin Juli's spiritual power was strong, so he could certainly endure it. However, Shin Yinma cried in his sleeve. Mommy, mommy! Shin Juli cast a spell on the sleeve, completely isolating the sleeve from the outside world so that the aura would not affect the child. Shui Yilan stood there and felt his eyes sting. He looked coldly at the burning coffin and laughed coldly. This coffin can't be burned. I've already burned it 8 times, and every time I'm done, it would reappear at the same spot the next day. Shin Juli remained silent. He stood in place and watched the coffin burn to ashes. He exhaled softly. Shuama, no matter which world you are in now, the fate of being a jinx will no longer follow you. He closed his eyes and sensed the aura in the wind. A moment later, he was disappointed. He had thought that this aura, which contained Shui Yimo's resentment, would automatically search for the original owner. Unexpectedly, this aura only dissipated on the spot, and had no intention of tracking down the original owner. This time, Ning Shuema left decisively. She cut off all ties with him, leaving nothing behind. Such decisiveness was not something an ordinary person could do. After all, he had underestimated her ability. Shin Yinma was listless. It was not easy for him to smell his mother's aura, but it was still useless. This place was a barren land. Shin Juli did not want to waste any more time here, so he rose into the air. He remembered hearing from Shui Yilan that Ning Xuema accidentally encountered a black hole after she rose from this place and was sucked into it. Therefore he wanted to try his luck now. Chapter 1568. Just as he flew into the air, he suddenly sensed something. He turned around abruptly and his heart sank. In the sky above the coffin, clouds were rapidly gathering. The clouds were white at first, but gradually they turned into a light red color. Tribulation. At this time, there was no second person who was going through tribulation here. Xinjuli turned around and flew down. He saw Shui Yilan standing on the small platform, looking up at the clouds in the sky with his arms wide open. His eyes were filled with fanaticism. "Momo, are you here to pick me up?" "Shui Yilan, get out of the way." Xinjuli flew down. This was a tribulation lightning. With Shui Yilan's current strength, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to deal with it. Although Xinjuli didn't like this guy, he didn't want anything to happen to him because he used to be someone that Ning Xuema cared about. He waved his sleeves and a gust of wind flew out. He wanted to slap Shui Yilan away first. Unexpectedly, just as the gust of wind flew out, a faint red light enveloped Shui Yilan. Xinjuli's gust of wind hit the red light, causing it to sway. "Haha, it must be Momo who can't bear to see me in pain and came to pick me up." Shui Yilan laughed loudly in the red light. He opened his arms and faced the rolling red clouds. "Come on." This time the lightning came quickly and fiercely. Before Xinjuli could react, the red lightning had already flown down like fire snakes and hit Shui Yilan's body. Shui Yilan didn't have any intention of resisting. The red light became brighter and brighter, illuminating the ground as if it was a sunset. In the red light, his clothes were already burning. It was as if he was bathing in the red lotus karmic fire. He didn't move at all, and only his two arms desperately tried to resist the red light. "Momo, Momo?" His voice was pained and slightly trembling. He didn't allow others to block the lightning for him. Xinjuli had no choice but to watch him stand there and be struck by the red lightning again and again. His whole body was like a burning fireball. In the firelight, Shui Yilan finally looked at Xinjuli. There was a smug look on his face as he said, "Ha, Momo has finally come to pick me up." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly exploded like a firework, the red clouds dispersed, and the earth returned to normal. It was as if nothing had happened. Xinjuli's body swayed in the air. Even Shui Yilan had disappeared? He thought for a moment and his heart stirred. He immediately cast a spell to collect the soul. Shui Yilan had just been struck and scattered. Even if his soul had been scattered, there must be some scattered souls left at the place where he had been. Even though he didn't like Shui Yilan, he was still someone who had a lot to do with Ning Xuema in this world. If he was still alive in this world, Xinjuli would still feel that there was someone who missed that person as much as he did. At least he wouldn't feel so lonely. After a while, he looked down at his empty fingertips and then at the place where the red clouds had appeared. His fingers clenched again. Nothing. Shui Yilan had also disappeared completely. Not even a trace of his soul was left behind. Could it be that he had really been taken away by Ning Xuema? Did they go to the same place? He flew up and circled the place where the red clouds had appeared. He couldn't find any trace of Ning Xuema's aura. He descended in a daze and landed on the stone platform where Shui Yilan had been standing. Just now, when the red lightning enveloped Shui Yilan along with the stone platform, it only struck him, leaving nothing behind. The stone platform, on the other hand, was safe and sound. Not even a trace of being struck by lightning was left behind. Chapter 1569. Xinjuli stood on the stone platform for a moment. After the lightning struck, the air here seemed to have been purified. The aura of Shui Yilan and the resentment of Shui Yemo had disappeared without a trace. He could no longer sense them. They were also struck by lightning and disappeared without a trace. There was not even a trace of their souls left behind. Xinjuli sat on the platform with his eyes closed. No one knew what he was thinking. His robes flapped in the wind, and his figure was reflected on the mountain wall. He looked more lonely and desolate than he had ever been before. Although he did not react, the baby in his sleeve clearly sensed his mountain-like emotions. He poked his head out of his sleeve and shivered when he sensed his father's cold and despairing emotions. He called out timidly, "Father? Did mother really take away that uncle from just now? Why didn't she take Nianma away? Does she not want us anymore?" His voice was soft and timid. There was a hint of disappointment and confusion. Doesn't mother love Nianma the most? Why didn't she take Nianma away? Nianma has been so obedient. Towards the end he was already on the verge of tears. Shenjiuli heaved a sigh of relief. He held the stone in his hand and looked at it. Nianma, it's not that your mother doesn't want you, but she doesn't know who you are. Don't worry. Nianma, the road ahead is probably going to be more difficult. You have to learn to be strong. Shen Nianma looked at him with his eyes wide open. Father? Shenjiuli rubbed the stone with his finger and let it sway. Nianma, no matter what, you have to remember that you are a man. When a man encounters a problem, crying will not solve it. You have to learn to face it. Shenjiuli took the opportunity to educate him. This child seemed to be a little too fond of crying. Was it because he was too young? Or was it because of his character? Or was it because he spoiled him too much? He began to think. This child was the only connection between him and her. Now it was also his support. Naturally, he hoped that this child would be able to support the world in the future. After all, he had never taken care of a child before, and it was his first time taking care of such a small child. Naturally, she did not know that Shen Nianma was much stronger than his peers. After all, he was still too young. Crying was a child's nature. It had nothing to do with gender. Shen Nianma did not fully understand what Gu Shijie was trying to say, but he did understand half of it. His father did not like to see him cry. Therefore he nodded seriously in the stone. Nianma, try not to cry in the future. Nianma, you have to be a man in the future. Shenjiuli heaved a sigh of relief and patted the stone. That's a good boy. But, Mommy used to say that only men who are married can be called men. Those who are not married are called boys. When they are young they are called boys. Baby boys. Shen Nianma corrected him. Shenjiuli, after such a conversation between father and son, Shenjiuli was finally able to control his emotions. He stood up and flew into the sky to check on the spatial door here. It seemed to be a place of turbulence. Various spatial doors appeared from time to time and disappeared in an instant. However, he still did not see the black hole that once swallowed Ningxuema. Shenjiuli checked between the spatial doors and calculated something from time to time. He did not know what was going on. Since he came to this desolate planet, some ancient memories came into his mind from time to time. Chapter 1570. Those ancient memories were not related to anything. The main thing was the skills that he used to have. He had forgotten them because of the repeated hibernation, but now there were signs of them gradually recovering. For example, he could now make some deductions based on these unpredictable space doors. He did not know how long he had been calculating in front of these space doors. Suddenly, he turned around and rushed down directly into the turbulent sea on the desolate planet. He calculated the direction very accurately. After rushing down, he found a whirlpool a few hundred meters deep. The whirlpool was huge and very deep. It was like a big black hole that was swallowing the surrounding sea water. Shenjiuli made up his mind and rushed directly into the whirlpool. He was drawn into the depths of the sea by the whirlpool. Strangely, the whirlpool appeared for more than a minute and then disappeared automatically. The sea returned to its calm state. There was a sea in heaven and earth called the ultimate ruin. The water of the ultimate ruin nourished everything in the world. After a big circle of swaying and rolling, Shen Nianma finally poked his head out of his father's sleeve. After looking around, his eyes widened. The blue water was the sky and the coral was the ground. The crystal blue water swayed around him. From time to time, there were groups of different kinds of fish that he had never seen before swimming past him. The scenery was unprecedentedly beautiful. He even saw two mermaids swimming over from afar. D-Zun. The two mermaids finally swam in front of the father and son. One of the mermaids called out his father's honorific. Shenjiuli's eyes fell on the two mermaids. One was a man and the other was a woman. The man was very handsome, and the woman was as charming as a flower. Yi Feng, you are really here. The man and the woman were Yi Feng and Yan Ziyuan, who had died for love. Just as Shenjiuli speculated, they were reborn as mermaids and were really together. This was another world. Here one could not feel the storm outside. In the depths of the sea, it was always calm and beautiful. In the depths of the sea water automatically retreated to the sides and became the background. In the snow-white sea sand, there was a huge house made of shells. Yi Feng and Yan Ziyuan were already married, and this shell house was their love nest. When old friends met, it was natural for them to exchange greetings. After Yi Feng pulled Yan Ziyuan to kowtow to the ancestor, he invited him to his shell house. Although the shell house couldn't be said to be magnificent, it had an elegant and warm style, making people feel warm as soon as they entered. After Yi Feng and Yan Ziyuan were reborn in the sinkhole, they were delighted that neither of them had lost their memories. The moment they woke up, they began searching for each other in the sinkhole. Finally, they found each other and naturally joined together. The resources here were plentiful, and they didn't have to worry about food and drink. The two of them lived a very comfortable life here. The only drawback was that they couldn't leave and couldn't see their own kind. This place was a world of its own. Although the sea had seawater rushing out of the ruins of N through a special channel, the two of them were unable to do so. Fortunately, the two of them were not particularly attached to the outside world. As long as they stayed by each other's side, even hell could become heaven. Moreover, the living environment here was much better than hell, so the two of them were very satisfied. Yan Ziyuan was already pregnant, and her slightly protruding belly could be seen in her clothes. Yi Feng understood that the ancestor must have secretly done something for them to be reborn, so he was naturally very grateful to him and Ning Xuema. Chapter 1571. Just as he was regretting that the news of their rebirth could not be spread to the outside world and not let Ning Xuema know, Dizun coincidentally arrived. Dizun, I wonder if Miss Ning has been well? Yan Ziyuan was concerned about her good friend and was the first to ask. Shinjuli lowered his eyes slightly and did not answer her question. He had not come here to reminisce with old friends, nor to talk about his entanglements with Ning Xuema. He only had one purpose for coming here. Yi Feng, there is a passage in the ruins of N that leads to another world. Do you know where it is? Yi Feng pondered for a moment. I have been to every corner of the ruins of N for the past few years. There is indeed a cloud gate in the southeast direction. I don't know what is behind the cloud gate, but the noise is terrifying. I have tried to open the gate, but there should be an ancient enchantment on the gate. I can't open it no matter what. I don't know if the gate leads to another world. Shinjuli stood up. Bring me there to take a look. It was a jade gate that seemed to support the heavens. The jade was covered in moss after being soaked in seawater. Under the cover of the moss, one could faintly see the complicated decorative patterns on the gate. There were two simple seal characters on the gate, Cloud Gate. The seawater in this place was exceptionally cold. Furthermore, there seemed to be a repulsive force on the Cloud Gate. This repulsive force pushed away anything that approached the Cloud Gate. Yi Feng used a special finger technique to throw a stone at the gate. Before the stone touched the gate, it was reflected back at a speed even faster than Yi Feng's throw. If Yi Feng had not been prepared and pulled Yan Ziyuan away in advance, the stone would have hit him instead. The stone shattered into pieces in the process of being reflected. It was obvious that this gate did not allow any species to approach it. Yi Feng told Shinjuli about the methods he had used to get close to the gate but had failed. Shinjuli listened without saying a word. He looked at the Cloud Gate. This Cloud Gate was very familiar to him. Some memories seemed to surge in his mind. These memories were fragmented and could not be connected at once. However, he clearly captured the scene of himself walking out from behind this gate many years ago. Although he had lived in this world for many years, he could not remember his origins. Every time he tried, it was a blur. Later, he set up the oracle that he would sleep once every 900 years and forget everything when he woke up. He did not remember anything about his past. Only after coming to this land of death did his memory seem to slowly recover. From time to time, inexplicable scenes would appear in his mind. For example, this gate. Now he finally saw the door. It was the same as the one in his memory. However, the door in his memory was brand new. It didn't have the green moss that had grown over tens of thousands of years. With a wave of his sleeve, a hurricane flew toward the door. The seawater rolled back in an instant. The green moss on the gate was wiped away by an invisible hand, revealing the simple and complicated patterns on it. When the surrounding seawater finally calmed down, he could hear a faint whistling sound behind the Cloud Gate. It was as if there was another world on the other side. Yi Feng's gaze fell on Shinjuli. He could not help but admire him. He had tried all kinds of methods to remove the green moss on the Cloud Gate, but it was all in vain. But the ancestor had waved his sleeve and removed the green moss on the gate, making it look as clean as if it had taken a bath. Chapter 1572. Yi Feng, do you guys want to leave this place? Shinjuli suddenly turned around and asked Yi Feng. Yi Feng immediately looked at his wife beside him. Yan Ziyuan and he looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with clear longing. No matter how good a place was, if there were no other people of the same kind, one would be tired after a long period of time. If they could leave this place and return to the Sharkmen clan, it would also be a good idea. Perhaps they would encounter some storms after leaving this place, but who would be willing to spend their entire life in a place like stagnant water? Yifeng nodded solemnly. Of course. Does Dizun have a way? Shinjuli said indifferently, I can send you guys out of this place, but the price is 10 shark pearls. Yifeng was stunned. Shark pearls were actually formed by Sharkman's tears. Ever since he reunited with Yan Ziyuan, he felt like he was soaking in a honey pot every day. When had he ever cried? Sharkman's tear glands were not developed since birth, so he rarely cried. Then should he cry now? But how could he cry in this kind of mood? Yan Ziyuan, who was beside him, was stunned. She looked at her husband and coughed lightly. I have shark pearls. She took out a pouch from her body and poured out a few glowing pearls from the pouch. Every pearl was sparkling and translucent in the shape of a teardrop. They spun around in her palm. They were the shark pearls, and there were a total of 14 to 15 of them. Yifeng looked at the shark pearls and then looked at her. He was a little nervous. Ziyun, have you cried before? Was there something that he did not do well enough? He made her cry. Yan Ziyun sighed softly. I cried a few times in my dreams. Back then, when Yifeng died in her arms, it left a deep impact on her. Although she was reborn as a mermaid, she would still occasionally dream of the scene at night. It made her feel the heartache back then in her dreams, and she would cry. Yifeng should have also thought of this. He couldn't help but hug his wife tightly. Ziyun, you are pregnant now. Don't think about the past. Yan Ziyuan smiled sweetly and leaned into her husband's arms. Her face was red. I understand. I have already tried my best not to think about it. The two of them had been loving each other for the past few years. They were already used to it. Yifeng hugged his wife and comforted her. He only let her go when he saw that she was truly happy. At this time, Yifeng remembered that the ancestor was still standing beside them. His handsome face was slightly red. He coughed and handed the shark pearls over. Ancestor, these shark pearls should be enough, right? Shinjuli looked at the shark pearls and didn't take them. The shark pearls that I want must be 5 yang pearls and 5 yin pearls. The yang pearls were the tears of the male sharkmen. Therefore Yifeng had to cry for them too. Yifeng rubbed his forehead, feeling a headache coming on. He didn't like to cry. Now that he was asked to cry, he really couldn't cry. He was wondering whether he should cut himself twice. The pain might make him cry, but the ancestor spoke again. No matter what kind of shark pearls it is, they must be fresh sharkmen's tears of love. Yifeng and Yan Ziyuan looked at each other. It was difficult to make them cry for love. Shinjuli looked at them and slowly said, I have a way to make both of you cry. As soon as he said this, the two of them were shocked. Yifeng subconsciously pulled Yan Ziyuan behind him and looked at the ancestor cautiously. Ancestor, I don't want Ziyuan to suffer any harm. She is pregnant now. She needs to be happy and can't stand any stimulation. Shinjuli looked at the way he protected his wife. His eyes slightly darkened and a trace of sadness flashed through them. Chapter 1573. The woman he loved was also pregnant, but he did not stay by her side from the beginning to the end. He even gave her such a big shock. Compared to Yifeng, he was not a qualified husband. Shuima, I hope you will give me the chance to make it up to you. He looked at the two people who were on guard and slightly lowered his eyes. He did not want to upset the two people who loved each other so much. However, in order to see Ning Shuima again and to find Yanma's mother, he had to sacrifice them a little. He did not say much. He just spread his sleeves in the sea, and the sparkling waves suddenly turned into a huge mirror. The clouds in the mirror gradually dispersed, and a figure appeared on it. Yifeng was shocked. He held Yan Ziyuan's hand and subconsciously wanted to take 2 steps back. However, his feet seemed to be fixed by an invisible force and he could no longer move. Yan Ziyuan, who was beside him, was obviously in the same situation. Both of them could not help but look at the mirror. The mirror showed the ice field and the ice cave. The more Yifeng looked at it, the paler his face became. The images that flashed in the mirror were all the adventures that he and Yan Ziyuan had in the ice field. The images started from when Yan Ziyuan fell into the ice cave, and he sacrificed himself to save her. That year, after Yifeng used the weapon dismemberment technique to kill the monster in the cave, he was also like a lamp that had run out of oil. When he was buried underground with Yan Ziyuan, he was actually already dead. However, he was afraid that Yan Ziyuan would be scared, so he forced himself to control one of his hands to comfort her. When he heard about the arrival of Di Zun and the others, he couldn't hold on any longer and his soul scattered. Therefore he didn't know what happened afterwards. Now he finally saw it. He saw Yan Ziyuan holding him and walking like a crazy person. He saw her eating the fish that he roasted on the edge of the cliff and singing to him in a low voice. The scenes were almost heartbreaking. Yifeng saw it with his own eyes. His heart was in pain and his eyes could not help but feel sour. It turned out that Ziyuan had done so much for him back then. It turned out that this was how she died. After he was revived in the ruins of End, it was Yan Ziyuan who found him first. After the two of them met again, Yan Ziyuan threw herself into his arms and hugged his waist tightly. No matter what, she refused to let go and cried her eyes out. She did not mention anything about that past, so this was the first time Yifeng knew about it. Even if he was a man of iron and blood, he couldn't help but be heartbroken when he saw that scene, and tears flowed out drop by drop, turning into mermaid pearls. Yan Ziyuan was a sensitive person. Not long after she started watching, she started to cry. Fortunately, Shinjuli was more humane. After she poured out the 5 mermaid pearls, he immediately covered her eyes with his sleeve, preventing her from seeing the images on the mirror for the time being. It was not known when the water mirror had disappeared. Yifeng was still immersed in the past and could not come out. It was not until Yan Ziyuan pulled on his sleeve that he came back to his senses. He subconsciously hugged his wife's waist and said, "Zi." Before he could finish his sentence, a wave of water suddenly rolled toward them, enveloping them and rushing them in a certain direction. Amidst the roaring sound of the water, they could faintly hear the ancestor's voice, "Don't struggle, I'll send you out." Yifeng was stunned and his heart was filled with joy. He subconsciously hugged his wife gently and protected her in his arms, saying, "Ziyuan, don't be afraid, we're going out now." Yan Ziyuan was also happy and surprised. She was also a little upset, saying, "Aya, if I knew that we could go out now, I would have brought along the clothes that I made for the child." Chapter 1574. Yan Ziyuan was also surprised and happy. She was also a little annoyed. "Aya, if I knew we could go out now, I would have brought along the little clothes I made for the child." "No matter, we can make them after we get out." "Yifeng, I'm a little scared." "Don't be scared. With me by your side, you don't have to be scared of anything. After we get out, we will return to the mermaid race. I will make you the queen of the sharkmen. I will let you and the child live the most comfortable life." The waves carried the two of them away, gradually disappearing into the depths of the sea. Shinjuli lowered his eyes slightly. He had heard the conversation between the two of them, and his heart felt like it was being pricked by needles. If that person was also by his side, he would definitely protect her and let her and the child live the most carefree life. He calmed himself down and slowly withdrew his hand. He turned back to look at the door. He knew that once the door was opened, the ruins of End would undergo an earth-shattering change, no less than a magnitude 10 earthquake. Everything here would change greatly, so he had to send Yifeng and his wife out. Now that he had no more worries, the next step was to open the door. In truth, he did not know what he would encounter after opening the door, and he did not know whether this door would lead to the space where Ningxu Ma was. But he had to try. As long as there was a glimmer of hope, he had to try. He knew clearly that he had walked out from this door many years ago, and then joined this world. Then after he walked through this door, what would he encounter? He had a faint premonition that once he walked through this door, his life would once again undergo a major reversal. His gaze fell on the jade door. The talismans on the jade door were faintly moving, flashing there as if they were calling out to him. He slowly walked forward. Originally, no living creature could get close to the jade door, but when he walked over, he did not encounter any repelling force. He slowly stretched out his hand and pressed on the jade door. The jade door instantly lit up, and with a series of creaking sounds, 10 holes slowly appeared on the door. The 10 holes were each the size of a shark pearl, and they were arranged in an irregular pattern. Shinjuli paused, and the 10 shark pearls in his hand shot out consecutively. The way he shot out the shark pearls seemed messy, as if he had shot them out randomly, but in fact he had arranged them according to a certain array. Every single one of the shark pearls had sunk into the small hole on the door, and they were embedded tightly. As the 10th shark pearl was inserted, the huge jade door suddenly rippled like water. With a boom, the jade door actually disappeared without a trace. Following the disappearance of the jade door, a massive golden wave surged out from the other side of the door and crashed down on Shinjuli. Shinjuli did not dodge, instead he rushed toward the golden wave. His figure was like a lightning bolt, like a bolt of lightning, like a bolt of the door, sliding into the door, he slid. That golden wave seemed to have a boundless destructive force, and when it collided with the seawater on this side, the seawater on this side was like a boiling pot, instantly boiling. Following the impact of the golden wave, the entire ruins of End seemed to have gone crazy. A big squid happened to swim over, and when it was hit by the golden wave, its body instantly exploded, and it disappeared without a trace. The entire ruins of End was turned upside down, and it was no longer as beautiful as it was before. And Shinjuli could not care about all of this. This golden wave had the power to destroy everything. Chapter 1575. The golden waves had the power to destroy everything. Any physical object could be corroded and destroyed. Any spells that did not belong here could not be used here. Any creature that came into direct contact with it would be melted. After all, Shinjuli had a layer of wizardry barrier around his body. The golden waves could not melt him, but he felt like he was being cooked alive. The pain was indescribable. Shinjuli's face was pale. He looked down and gritted his teeth to endure the pain. Ning Shuima had experienced the pain before. Now it was finally his turn. In fact, he could have used his psychokinesis to strengthen himself to reduce the pain, but at this time he wanted to protect Shin Yinma in his sleeve. Therefore he used almost all of his psychokinesis around the child to form an airtight layer of protection. Therefore, although Shin Yinma was in the same environment as him, he did not suffer much. He only felt a little dizzy after rolling in his father's sleeve. He clung to the stone wall under him and was a little puzzled. Was his father taking him to ride a roller coaster? It was spinning so fast. However, he liked it. He liked the thrill. He wanted to poke his head out to take a look, but this time, his father hid him very well. He struggled for a long time in his father's sleeve but could not get out. So, he had to give up. He did not know how long he had been going against the golden waves. It was so long that Shin Yinma was about to yawn. Suddenly, he felt a tremor in his body. There was a noise outside. It seemed that a wizardry barrier was broken. Then he could no longer hide in his sleeve and rolled out. God, how did someone come out of the golden sea? Oh, it is still alive. Look, look. There was a voice. The tone was a little strange, but fortunately Shin Yinma could understand it. He was a little confused after rolling for a while. He shook his head in the stone for a while to get rid of the little birds in front of him. He looked up. The sky was blue, the ground was green, and the sea was golden. His father was lying on the ground, motionless. The stone that he was resting on was in front of his father's chest. When he looked up, he could see his father's delicate chin. What a handsome man. It's a pity that he's a little old. Otherwise, it would be a good gift for our Lord Demon Lord. That's true. Our Lord Demon Lord only likes handsome children under the age of 10. This man is obviously not qualified. This stone is a little strange. Forget it, since he's not qualified, I'll just kill him and refine him into pills. This person looks like an immortal. The immortal pills he concocted must be very good. There were 3 men dressed in different clothes standing around his father. They were handsome and looked very young. At this moment they were looking down at the unconscious Shinjuli. These 3 people obviously didn't take Shinjuli seriously. One of them thrust his sword towards Shinjuli's chest, while the other one reached out to grab the red stone in front of Shinjuli's chest. These 3 people's martial arts were obviously very good. When the sword pierced down, there was a faint sound of wind and thunder. If this sword pierced through, Shinjuli would be pierced through by them. Father! Shin Yinma shouted. The red stone suddenly flashed, and a ball of pink light burst out from the stone to meet the sword that was piercing down. Bang! The pink light collided with the tip of the sword. The sword was slightly tilted, but the falling posture did not change. It was still going to pierce Shinjuli's chest. Father! Shin Yinma was so anxious that he almost rolled over and used the stone to block it. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.